Good morning. It is 7 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophy and Wilfred, a very good morning from me as well.
A warning, the UK is at risk of a lost generation unless the government gets a grip on youth unemployment.
Strikes and counter-strikes. Iran and America launched fresh attacks amid conflicting reports of a possible deal.
Britain's drug driving crisis. We confront the offenders behind the wheel and look at why the numbers are so high.
Also today, we're on the ground in southern Lebanon speaking to our special correspondent Alex Crawford, who's been doing remarkable reporting about the dangers facing paramedics. Plus,
Crystal Palace make history, winning their first European trophy in the UEFA Conference League final.
a very good morning to you. Our first story, and it's an alarming one for young people. A major review looking at youth unemployment has found getting on the career ladder is now simply out of reach for many. This is the report by Labour grandee Alan Milburn, looking at so-called NEETs, which are those people not in education, employment or training, and found that 1 in 6 will be on benefits by 2030.
So Alan Milburn talks about a lost generation, struggling with anxiety, and he describes what he calls as a shameful system where we spend more on benefits than we do on helping people get a job. Now, some of the factors highlighted in the report include the explosion of mobile phones leading to mental health issues, school absences and exclusions, and AI taking entry-level jobs in the workplace.
Well, Alan Milburn's review found that currently 1 in 8 people aged 16 to 24 in the UK are not in education, employment or training. 84% want a job or training.
So that could rise to 1 in 6 young people in the next 5 years. So that's 1.25 million people.
6 out of 10 of the economically inactive young people have never had a job, up from 4 out of 10 in 2005.
And just to put that in context, for every £25 spent on benefits for young people, only £1 is spent actually helping them get a job. Well, let's hear from some young people who spoke to our correspondent, Phoebe Southworth.
I've got at least probably about 2 friends who got jobs out of 20 or 30.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, man. And that's only because they've got it from family, because their dad works with them or something, you know what I mean? I can apply for universal credit, but I've already done it, but I don't want to stay in that for even longer than 2-3 months. I want to find a job ASAP, you know what I mean? I don't want to be on the dole. At this point, I might as well go into the army, you know what I mean? Because that's the only thing that's on these job application websites, because you don't need any experience.
The job market is just horrible. It's shocking. Like on Indeed, all you see, people make TikToks about it, joking about it all the time on my For You page. It's care, army. Or you could be a retail manager, but you haven't got the experience, so you can't apply for those jobs. There's no jobs you can apply for.
Some of my friends, they didn't go to college. They left after school, stopped learning, and now they can't really find a job because of that. And obviously now their life, you know, they might resort to something illegal, something that's not good for them.
With school, I got kicked out at 14 because of like truancy and behaviour problems. I don't like being in the house, so like I wouldn't want to do the benefits thing. I'd rather try and find a job and like get to doing stuff.
Well, Lucy's here, our political correspondent. It's such a stark report, and I think it just shows how difficult it is for young people right now to be getting a job.
Yeah, and there are a number of things that I really want to pick out from here, actually. One of the things that Alan Milburn points out, he dismisses this idea, this criticism. I mean, it's a joke that people make, isn't it, that young people are snowflakes. He says that's not true. He's like, this is a generation that has been rewired, and he talks about the effect that social media has. I mean, it was just earlier this week we were talking about the pressure on the Prime Minister to bring in a ban for under-16s. He says that these are people, a bedroom generation, that are just so kind of addicted to smartphones, social media. It's affecting their mental health. You're seeing young people with anxiety, depression, ADHD, and later on as well, we'll find out more about what he's found. And I think, you know, the impact on the economy, for example, is going to be really quite shocking. The government is doing a number of things, and we have to recognise that. Trying to bring in more apprenticeships, a youth guarantee scheme. They're trying to get more young people into work. But what Alan Milburn is saying, which again is really quite alarming for the government, is that these changes don't cut it. You need to do even more.
Interestingly enough, we don't get the final recommendations yet either. And it is a really urgent problem, and one that I think it's fair to say, looking backwards, could have been tackled. You know, these reviews are fantastic, but they take time. And some of this, if you see some of the responses from various corners of the political art, but also from business, everyone is shocked by the results, but they're not that surprised. And this is something that the government's got to get on with very, very quickly. Yeah,
he also says that. He says young people have been failed by the state, and we're not just talking about employment, we're talking about health, education, the benefit system, the marketplace. And he says we've known about this for a long time. You'll speak to the Conservatives later, and I'm sure that you'll put all of these things to them. He's saying that radical change is needed, but I think what's worrying for the government is the number of areas that they're going to need to make changes in. And he says, you know, Saturday jobs are in freefall. The jobs aren't there anymore for people. And, you know, he does... Tony Blair was saying this yesterday as well, that budgets by Rachel Reeves, for example, we've heard this from businesses, haven't we? They've made it harder to hire young people. Yeah. This is such a multifaceted thing that the government is going to have to tackle.
I feel to me that there are two parts of this report. One that I agree is stuff that we knew already that we should just crack on with, like, you know, changes to making it more difficult, more expensive for companies to hire young people, for example, which are having an impact, clearly. But then there's another part of it where I actually think he's done some really serious thinking here, and it is the kind of serious thinking that we do need and that shows the efficiency of a review on, for example, these guys are not snowflakes, as you were saying. They have been crippled by social media and by phones. And what are we going to do about that? And these are big questions that actually I think kind of need to be put.
And isn't this, you know, what we're talking about here is much bigger than Westminster and politics. But I am going to bring it back just quickly to that, because this comes at a time for Keir Starmer where all of the criticism around his leadership and his party has been that incremental change isn't good enough and that he needs to be radical and he needs to be bold. And if this doesn't push a government to do that, then I think, you know, what will? You know, like I said, we were talking about a social media ban earlier in the week. Again, this kind of forms part of that argument. So let's see.
Yeah, let's see.
Alan Milburn coming up shortly to discuss all of this at 7:15. Lucy, thank you. To Iran now, and there have been dramatic developments overnight with both America and Iran launching strikes on each other.
So Iran say they've targeted a US airbase in response to an American attack on a military target. Sirens have also been heard in Kuwait as well.
Let's go straight to Sally. She's in Dubai for us live once again. I mean, Sally, you kind of can't sort of make up anymore the sort of change in sentiment that we can get in the space of 24 hours or even 12 hours. Early yesterday, great optimism about the possibility of the Strait being reopened within 30 days. Not the same this morning.
No, that's right, Wilf. I think a lot of observers in this region especially take all of that optimism whenever we hear diplomatic breakthroughs being discussed with a big pinch of salt, because we see just how quickly things change here. When I wake up in the morning and I see that there hasn't been something that's happened overnight, I feel genuinely surprised. And today, of course, we've seen that this has been quite a lively morning. The US has carried out a second round of strikes on Iran this week, targeting a military site. That's according to a US official via Reuters. Interestingly, we haven't heard from US Central Command yet. They normally come out and confirm things quite quickly. But according to this US source, that they targeted this military site because it was presenting a threat to US forces and commercial maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. And then shortly after that pre-dawn strike on Iran by the US, Kuwait reported incoming missiles and drones into their airspace that they were intercepting with air defences. And I heard from a local source who said that they heard very loud blasts around Kuwait International Airport. Now, Iran has come out and said that they targeted a US airbase in response to an attack on Bandar Abbas, where they have a large military presence in the south of the country. It's a port city that sits on the Strait of Hormuz. So we're seeing yet another flare-up and clash between the two sides at the same time that very critical diplomatic efforts are underway. But we're also hearing a real contradiction in terms of how that's going. The Iranians, via state television last night, said that some sort of unofficial framework for a memorandum of understanding had been drafted between the two sides, which included the US withdrawing its troops from around Iran and lifting the naval blockade on Iranian ports. Well, the US came out very quickly and completely rubbished those claims, calling them complete fabrication. So here we are. We remain in this very tense diplomatic spot at the moment with what feels like quite regular military flare-ups, despite this very fragile ceasefire still holding. And I think there's a real concern, certainly in this region, that confidence is low, we're going to see some sort of breakthrough anytime soon, and that this period of controlled tension could just rumble on for months, which is really causing a lot of harm to Gulf economies, but also leaving them very vulnerable to retaliatory attacks from Iran, like Kuwait has seen today.
Sally, thank you very much indeed. Sally Lockwood there for us.
I just mentioned, to state the obvious, oil prices yesterday, the lowest we'd seen for months, low 90s on Brent, back up to the high 90s again this morning, 98, up 3.5% this morning for Brent crude. Let's take you now to Lebanon, where paramedics are increasingly coming under attack by Israel, despite a ceasefire supposedly being in place.
Our special correspondent Alex Crawford travelled to southern Lebanon to see how the paramedics are dealing with the constant threat, warning some viewers may find this distressing.
The life of a paramedic in Lebanon is full of danger right now. The first responders don body armour and helmets to enter the war zone that's outside. There have been multiple strikes in Nabatea for days now. It's one of two major southern cities which the Israeli military is forcibly emptying. The Israeli military insists it's rooting out Hezbollah. To many Lebanese, it feels like collective punishment. The first responders know a few hundred people still remain in Nabatea, but they also know by turning up here to rescue the wounded puts themselves at risk. More than 20 medics have been killed during what's meant to be a truce. The Lebanese Health Ministry says they're being deliberately killed. The paramedics now wear GoPros to every call to counter Israeli claims that ambulances are being used to ferry Hezbollah fighters or weapons. What you're about to see will be upsetting to some and shows graphic injuries. There seem to be at least 4 people badly wounded. The first spotted is trapped under branches. A second is lying face down with critical head injuries, but appears to be conscious and moaning for help. They get him on a stretcher and between them inch the casualty over the twisted debris. This is a scene being repeated all across the south, and it's the rescuers who are the crucial link to any medical care nearby.
Well, Alex joins us now from Beirut. Alex, thank you so much for being with us. I guess my question to you is whether or not you can just give us a bit of a sense about what life is like on the ground for people right, at the front line of this conflict.
It's horrifying, it's terrifying, and it's going on right now. We're in the capital, Beirut, which has been off limits pretty much, apart from one strike since the agreed ceasefire on April the 17th. That is not the case in the south of the country from where we've just come. Yesterday, Israel really ratcheted up its forced evacuation orders. First of all, telling Nabatea, where we were, the entire city to evacuate. That's had a previous population of about 100,000, and then followed on a couple of hours later, telling the entire city of Tyre, this is considered the capital of the south, a population of about 200,000 people. It's meant to be the longest populated, inhabited city in the world. They told the entire city to evacuate. And then yesterday told the entire south of Lebanon, all the 230 to 300 villages and towns south of the Zarani River, about 30 kilometres inside Lebanese territory, to leave. That prompted a mass exodus from all these areas. This morning and overnight, they have been bombarded by airstrikes and drone strikes. Tyre this morning had about 7 airstrikes in this previously heavily populated area within about 10 minutes. The rescue workers are staying in all these places. Those same Nabatea ambulance crews are still in Nabatea as they have been peppered by Israeli airstrikes and drone strikes. This morning in Tyre, there are still rescue workers, and I understand at the moment, trying to dig through rubble, trying to see if anyone has been trapped under these large buildings which have been brought down this morning. So it is terrifying. And remember, these evacuation orders, the Israeli military says it's giving advance warning. They're in effect on the ground orders to get out of the area because, in their words, they're declaring the entire area, the entire south of Lebanon, a combat zone, and telling them leave or you risk dying and being injured. And that is what is happening to the people on the ground. At 3 o'clock this morning, there was a forced evacuation order for one particular specific area in Tyre. 3 o'clock in the morning, when most people are sleeping, usually at that time. There was Eid al-Adha celebrations overnight, so many people were involved in family activity throughout the day. They got this evacuation order, and suddenly as quickly as you can and get out of the area, with no specific details about exactly when these strikes are going to happen, just a warning that they will happen.
Alex, just finally wanted to ask your level of expectation or hope for ceasefires returning and lasting. We were just talking with Sally about, exchanges of fire between the US and Iran, which is often what we're most focused on or initially focused on, but clearly no peace deal will last unless there's peace where you are as well.
Well, you've actually put the finger right on it, Wilf, in that the negotiators in Tehran are absolutely insisting that any peace deal between US, Israel and America is linked to a ceasefire in Lebanon, and the armed military group Hezbollah that they support and have funded throughout the years, and which is a prescribed terrorist organisation amongst much of the West. They're linking any future deal between Iran, US, America and Israel with what happens here. There are lots of people in Lebanon, particularly the Lebanese government, who don't want that linked. They want a separate deal, a separate ceasefire. Remember, they did agree a ceasefire, Lebanon and Israel. Hezbollah is not round the table. They agreed a ceasefire on April the 17th. That was extended another 45 days to July. But in effect, on the ground, there is no ceasefire. There are daily multiple bombings, primarily across the south. Israeli troops are occupying dozens of villages and towns in the south. The Israeli strategic objectives of destroying Hezbollah have clearly not succeeded, with the armed group managing to fly these first-person view drones, these unmanned drones which cannot be detected or stopped by the Iron Dome. They've primarily been focusing them on the Israeli troops within southern Lebanon, but over the past week they've switched tactics to not only attack the Israeli troops inside southern Lebanon, but also to fly over the border into communities in northern Israel like Metula, and that's causing fear and worry over the border, and absolutely frustrating the Israeli authorities, who have found or decided that they're going to extend and try to push much further and deeper into Lebanon, with the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordering and instructing the Israeli military to do this. And that has led to a huge swathe of the country of Lebanon in the south. We're talking about 30 kilometers of territory inside Lebanon, which is now being declared a combat zone by the Israelis. So it is not looking good at all for the people of Lebanon.
Alex, thanks so much as always, and well worth checking out her full report on the Sky News website and app. A quick bit of breaking news for you relating to BP that Mark Kleiman has brought us, and he'll be joining us next hour to talk about it in more detail. You might have seen the news this week that Albert Manifold, the chairman who was ousted, and he's now responded with a very detailed pushback, saying he might have had a determination to drive change on cost, performance, balance sheet and shareholder communications and pushed and challenged people directly. Yes, but there's considerable distance between driving an organisation with urgency and the characterisation of my conduct that's now being put about. So he's pushed back hard on whether he was too tough a boss. Mark Kleiman will join us next hour with more on that.
Now, very pleased to say that our next guest is the former Health Secretary, Alan Milburn, who's been looking into this big review from the government into what is going on with our young people. So he's a man, I should say, who has done an awful lot of work on social mobility in your time in politics as well. These statistics you found are simply unbelievable,
yes.
can I just say. I find them quite shocking. 1 million young people not in education, work or training, 58% of them have never had a job.
Yes.
What is going on with this generation?
Well, they are stuck in a perfect storm, and if we're not careful, they're going to be a lost generation. You know, if you go back 20 years, that number was 4 in 10. It's now risen to 6 in 10 of young people aged 16 to 24 who've never, ever been in work. So the problem used to be youth unemployment. If you go back down the ages, it's now not really youth unemployment. These young people, about 60% of them, are not looking for work. And if you're not looking for work and you're not in work by the time you're 24, honestly, by the time you're 34, 44, your life chances are really ruined.
And why is this?
There's a perfect storm, I think, that this generation is sort of suffering from. You know, the nature of the labour market has really changed. Entry-level jobs have gone. Think about the Saturday job.
Yeah, like in a cafe or whatever you used to...
I was a newspaper boy,
Yeah.
delivery boy. I
Not many days now.
I got sacked, by the way.
What did you get sacked for?
Because I was like a very adolescent boy. I couldn't get out of bed, and I was supposed to be delivering the morning papers.
We get it away with it in this job
but it taught me a very big lesson. I've never been, well, touch wood, I've never been sacked since. But so those jobs have gone, and now young people feel like, you know, that first rung on the career ladder, it's more out of reach for them, and they're left in this absurd catch-22 situation where employers are asking for work experience, but of course they haven't had the opportunity to get work experience. So, and this is where they get really frustrated. The really great thing, the good news, look, there's a lot of reasons for pessimism, but the reason for optimism is when we surveyed these young people who are NEET, it's a horrible term, but not in education, employment and training, 84% of them want to be in work and want to be training.
Yeah, you see, I was so struck by that stat. 84% want a job, right? Or education. I just feel like part of the social contract used to be, if you work hard at school, university, in an apprenticeship, you get a job at the end of it. And it feels like that social contract has basically broken down.
Yes, I think that is absolutely true. And honestly, as I've been around the country talking to people, whether it's parents, grandparents, employers, schools, etc., businesses everywhere, this is the most visceral issue that I've known in 40 years in politics or public policy. I was going to say there's a concern. It's actually a fear, I think, in society now, amongst parents and grandparents, about the future of their kids, about their ability to get a job, a home, a decent career, a good future. And that's about AI, mental health, the after effects of the pandemic, all of this lack of opportunity in society. The social contract is built on a very, very simple basis, which is you put in effort, you get a reward. Each generation should do better than the previous generation. That's a contract that's been broken. And our job of this generation, we've got to fix it. We really do.
It feels almost like a kind of tinderbox with that social contract breaking down. I mean, are you worried about, you know, in future generations, if we don't sort this out, you know, social unrest?
It's not so much social unrest. What I'm really worried about is that people think that, you know, that contract you talked about. I was brought up by a single mum, and what she always taught me was, you know, I'm from a pretty poor background and all that, you know, I grew up on a council estate, but she always said to me, if you put in effort, you got a reward. And I guess in my life, you know, I've been very, very lucky, but it's all been really about work and purpose and meaning. That's given me meaning in life. And this is a generation that, if we're not careful, are going to be written off. This is going to be the bedroom generation, stuck in their bedrooms with higher levels of anxiety than we've seen before. And you talk to young people, and it's like, you know, they're so frustrated about this. You talk to young people, and they're doing dozens, sometimes hundreds of applications for jobs. They hear nothing back. And it's the silence that kills them. It dents confidence, but it also kills hope.
How much of this is down to AI, do you think?
Not yet, I think.
But it will get worse.
There's a real risk around AI. AI will create jobs as well, but it, of course, will unsettle the labour market and change it, and that will be a big fear that people have.
Can I ask how much of it do you think is due to government policy? Because some businesses are saying, actually, part of the issue is it's more expensive to hire people now at those low-paid jobs.
Yes, I think that has had an impact, undoubtedly, that is the case. And, you know, the government's got to be very careful, because if you want to maximise jobs for young people, you've got to minimise the risk for the employer.
And what specifically? Do you think minimum wage rise? Do you talk about national insurance contributions or both?
So I think it's all of these things together, you know, but every time an employer takes on a young person, it's always a risk because they're unproven. So the job of government is to minimise the risk, maximise the incentives. But we shouldn't kid ourselves. You know, the changes that I've described in the labour market, they haven't just happened in the last few years. They've been going on for, in some cases, decades. Apprenticeships is a good example. The number of apprenticeship starts amongst young people has fallen by a third in just 10 years. So there's issues not just in the welfare system, but in the education system, the health system. And what we say, our core conclusion is the systems that are supposed to be helping young people from education into employment are no longer fit for purpose. They're not working. And in some cases, they're making the problem worse, not better.
I was really struck by what you talked about when it comes to phones and social media.
Right.
Saying that, look, there's been this big increase in young people claiming sickness benefits, particularly for mental health issues like anxiety. They're not snowflakes. This is a real issue, but it's driven by the fact they're on phones all the time. So what's your feeling on a ban for social media?
Well, the government's looking at that, and, you know, I don't know where they're going to go, but we will pronounce on that in the autumn. So we're gathering the evidence at the moment.
Go on, tell us you must have a bit of a...
The evidence points in one direction. Look, we've had a small team of people going around the country talking to neat young people. These young people are not in education and employment training. And they do this exercise where they start a conversation saying, OK, what time did you go to sleep last night? 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, sometimes never. So this is a generation...
Because they're on the phone.
They're on the phone. They're on the phone. And the evidence that I've seen, there's a brilliant guy called Professor Peter Fonagy, and I've really relied on Peter's research because, you know, he knows far more about it than I do. And what he says is distress is real amongst young people, and it is leading to functional impairment. So this is lack of sleep, you know, low concentration levels, and so on and so forth. This is a real thing. It's not a fake thing. They're not making it up. This is a more anxious generation.
And I mean, look, I know you don't want to say before you pronounce it, but it feels like you're saying the evidence is pointing on one way when it comes to social media.
The evidence is pointing in one direction. I really genuinely think it is. I think this idea that you can have a generation, particularly of young kids, who are sat in their bedrooms, you know, late at night, sometimes early in the morning, doom scrolling continuously, and that not to have an impact on them, that is, I think that defies logic.
Do you think Keir Starmer gets it?
Yes, I do. Yeah, no, very much so. And I think, you know, Pat McFadden, who's the Welfare Secretary and has really been championing this work, he commissioned my review, he's up for a really big change.
You obviously work very closely with Tony Blair. You were his health secretary. You were kind of seen in a way as kind of Mr. Blairite in a way. I know that was kind of Tony Blair, but you were number 2, if you like. I was very intrigued to see what your view was on his intervention yesterday.
Well, Tony's certainly still capable of making an argument and causing one, isn't he? So he's pretty good at that. He's always worth listening to. And I think what he says about, you know, modern politics, which is for it to work and for the public to believe it, you've got to have an agenda and you've got to have a plan. I think there was one thing missing from what he said, and the consequences will be calamitous, in my view, if we don't.
I know as journalists we're not supposed to talk about the elephant in the room, which is this kind of shadow leadership contest, but I guess is this your kind of rallying cry to Keir Starmer, Andy Burnham, Wes Streeting, everyone, to say this should be your cause?
It doesn't matter who it is. And frankly, we're talking to politicians across the piece. I was talking to Helen Wakely before, who's the Shadow Work Secretary, as we came into the studio this morning. I spoke to Helen yesterday about this. We're talking to all the political parties. You know, this should be an issue that genuinely is an issue for the nation, that actually brings the nation together. And when I talk to employers, young people, schools, local politicians, local charities, people are as concerned as we are about this. And they want to, more importantly, they want to do something about it.
I should have wrapped up about 5 minutes ago, but I find this issue so interesting. I am going to squeeze a very cheeky one at the end. Keir Starmer, Should the Labour Party give him more time, or is it time to actually look at someone else?
And I'm really going to duck that and say that's outside my terms of reference.
Oh, come on.
Do you see I went into politician mode there?
You've taken your politician hat off for the whole of the interview. Come on, what do you reckon?
I think the question really isn't a question of leadership. The question is a question of cause. You know, that's what I want to say.
Has Keir Starmer got a cause? Because you need a leader as well, don't you?
It's
You
interesting.
need a leader to sell the cause.
So Keir's writing about it in one of the newspapers in the Times this morning. You know, I know that this is an issue that he's really bothered about.
Okay.
And the question is, not are you bothered, are you going to do something about it?
OK. Great to have you on the programme. Thank you
so
very much for being with us. Alan Milburn there. Coming up, we are going to look at drug driving on the rise. We'll bring you the stats. We'll also hear from...
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
About now, this is a much bigger issue than many perhaps have realised, but driving under the influence of drugs is now more common than under the influence of alcohol.
In terms of arrests, we should say, there are more arrests for drug driving and more repeat offending, with drug drivers almost 5 times as likely as drink drivers to get behind the wheel again while under the influence. Greg Milam's been taking a look.
We've been confronting Britain's drug drivers. We've got kids in the car. Come on, Millet, stay away from me, lad.
Yeah, it's bang to rights. I've been smoking. I smoke it fairly regular, to be truthful.
The impact of drug driving can be dramatic, and it's getting worse.
So at this moment in time, you're under arrest, all right, for a positive drug wipe.
I'd say it's bigger than drink driving nowadays.
Look at what this car, driven by someone on cocaine, unleashed. We've spoken to that driver.
Look at me, it could have been so much worse. It could have been like 20 fatalities.
I've reported on the fatal consequences of drug driving. But for all the police action,
it's still taking months to get them off the roads.
There is a frustration because they're probably committing that offence over and over, realistically.
Other countries do get drug drivers off the road right away. So who are they? Who are Britain's drug drivers?
Well, you can see more of Greg's report by scanning the QR code on your screen now, but we're going to talk directly to someone who's been impacted by this. And we're joined by Lindsay Stewart, whose brother was killed by a drug driver. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us. If it's OK with you, please do tell us what happened to your brother.
Our beloved brother Tim, he was driving with his girlfriend to purchase a new car. Lovely sunny morning last July 2024. He was in the passenger seat, his girlfriend Wendy was driving, and the offender came on their side of the road, overtook a van on a blind bend and smashed straight into them, doing about 65 miles per hour. Wendy sustained serious injuries and Tim died at the scene. It's just absolutely devastated our family and the wider community. He was a much loved person, a beautiful soul. Yeah, it's horrific.
I'm so sorry for what happened to you. I mean, and your brother, like you say, you can just feel your kind of love for him kind of pouring through the screen, to be honest. What do you want to see happen?
Well, we found out that the offender was a repeat dangerous driver. He had a history of dangerous driving. We found out that he'd had a crash 10 days previously, also intoxicated with both drink and drugs. And when we found this out, we were just horrified. Why was this man on the road? Why did he have a valid driving licence? Tim is dead. Tim's death was preventable because of the laws at the way they are now. If someone is positive for drugs at the roadside, they have to wait for blood tests to come back. And that can take up to 6 months or even longer, and some are being lost in the system. So there's no deterrent here whatsoever. So we need law changes really to hold people to account, to remove drug drivers, dangerous drivers from the road.
Are you encouraged when you see new ways to test for drug driving, or do you just think it's far too slow?
Well, France and Australia have a fantastic system where they use an evidential saliva sampling test, which it has a rapid lab turnaround, which then removes the driver from the road within a day or two and revokes the licence. And we really could do with that here. We are able to implement this system now. It just needs, obviously, the government to say we can, and then hopefully be implemented. But that is really what we need here.
So you say you're waiting. You say you're waiting on the government. Have you had any indication about what the government's view is on this?
Yes, I've been working with the Policing Minister, Sarah Jones, and also the Transport Minister, Lillian Greenwood. They've released the road safety strategy in January, which incorporates some of Tim's law. Yeah, my petition, which I launched, which has 215,000 signatures almost, is about to be presented in Parliament. So I'm really pleased with the way the government have listened to us as a bereaved family and other bereaved families. They've really taken everything on board. Yeah, and I'm really pleased, and hopefully in time we'll get Tim's law written into the statute book, and we want to save other families going through what we have gone through. We need, more deterrent for dangerous drivers and repeat dangerous drivers, really, because currently there is no deterrent whatsoever.
Lindsay, thanks so much for joining us.
Can get on the road and continue to do it.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. We really do appreciate it. And a reminder to check out Greg's reporting via the QR code as well. Now let's return to Lebanon, where Israel's deepening its operations in the south of the country, warning it will work with extreme force against militant group Hezbollah. We, of course, were joined by Alex Crawford earlier in the programme. We're now joined by Heidi Dietrich, the National Director of World Vision in Lebanon. Thanks so much for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you.
What's your take of the latest situation there on the ground?
Yeah, World Vision Lebanon actually is deeply concerned, along with all humanitarians that are working in Lebanon, and in particular in the south. I just got off the phone with our Director of Response. In the south, the situation is exceptionally dire. In Tyre specifically, I just received an image of an airstrike about 2 meters from one of our partner buildings. And so it's important to understand that while Tyre has been targeted over the past several years, the targeting this week is actually inside the city limits, where there are 60 to 70,000 people who live within the city limits of Tyre, 200,000 about that live in the external part of Tyre. Tyre itself is a very important port city and one of the largest and longest inhabited cities in the world. But the exceptional targeting and barrage and stepped up military activity in all of the south is of extreme concern. We know that the shelters that are in Tyre are full. We've heard from the disaster risk reduction committees that they are asking us to tell displaced people to not come to Tyre, but move north, either to Saida or to Beirut or Akkar in the north. So it's dire. We're dealing with a situation where there were already 1 million people plus displaced in a country of only 5 million. And this week in particular has been exceptionally concerning for all of the people of Lebanon, but especially the children and the people in the south.
When you hear these evacuation orders, guidance coming from the Israelis, how easy or perhaps impossible is it for people in Lebanon to respond sufficiently to that sort of thing?
Well, it's impossible. We were especially concerned this week, and World Vision, along with our partners and others, prepared for this barrage plus mass evacuation orders because it is a holiday week for the Muslim population of Eid. It's impossible to know that one moment you're celebrating with your family and the next moment you have to flee with nothing but the clothes on your back. Getting, as Alex mentioned earlier, evacuation orders at 3 a.m. We're all sleeping at 3 a.m. It's impossible. So you have a population that's already traumatized, already been targeted, and then they are now being told to flee with nowhere really to go. And this is about protecting civilians. This is about protecting children. This is about protecting the mass of population and ensuring that there will be a safe place for children and families either to stay in their homes or be able to get to a place where they will be safe and be able to have access to food, water, shelter, healthcare, and education.
What is it that the international community could be doing on this? I mean, clearly there have been attempts to bind this particular part of the conflict into broader ceasefires, but there's distractions for the United States, amongst others, clearly.
Well, from our perspective, we have been saying since March 2nd, and let's be honest, since September 2024, when there was the initial escalation in Lebanon, then a so-called cessation of hostilities, there hasn't been a pause in military action, in airstrikes, in constant surveillance, even in areas where there aren't active airstrikes today. So since March 2nd and before, we have been calling, along with all in the humanitarian community, for peace, for all parties to come to the table and find a path toward coexistence, which is the hallmark of Lebanon, toward peace for protecting civilians, healthcare workers, humanitarians. World Vision, for example, has been working in the South for 50 years. We have seen constant and repeated conflict over those years. What we are appealing to the international community and all parties in this conflict is to lay down the weapons, stop the violence, think of the civilians, the children, the need for peace in Lebanon that can be a beacon of hope and peace and coexistence for all of the Middle East and the rest of the world.
Heidi, thanks so much for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're going to have a quick look at the weather now.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
So the heat is already building again today, although we're not quite set to beat Tuesday's record high. After today, though, the temperatures will slowly start to ease back to normal again. For now, it's a warm, mostly fine start for lots of us, although parts of Ireland and southwest England are looking a bit murky. Any early showers across northern England will soon clear this morning, leaving most places dry with lots of sunshine. Some mist and low cloud will hang on across the southwest, though, especially around Irish sea coasts. Northern and eastern parts look warmer than yesterday.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
After the break, what a night for Crystal Palace. We'll have a look at their historic Conference League football win.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Nice to see you. How are you feeling?
Looking forward to getting into the parliamentary chamber.
Are you any further forward to making a decision?
No, it's an important day today.
All of the claims were in line with my parliamentary duties, so I'm making that clear to you, Conor.
He was a Scot through and through.
He was a very good politician.
Alex Salmond was controversial, he was a disruptor, but above all, he was respected.
Will you resign if you lose this week?
Again, I'm not planning to, of course, lose the vote of no confidence. I'm planning to win that vote of no confidence.
His face said it all.
My intention to stand down as party leader.
This is now a storm with deadly consequences. How are they feeling?
They're a bit scared at the minute. We've been told to evacuate.
How are you feeling?
Devastated.
Hundreds of homes were wiped out by flooding. I'm Conor Gillis, Sky's Scotland correspondent.
It was probably the darkest time in my life.
Scott is 5 years sober after a cocaine addiction left him close to death.
Scotland has a shameful record. Worse than England, the worst in Europe.
Why not just say you failed? Because then you might get more respect from families who've lost loved ones.
This is where one of the UK's most prolific rapists thought he'd got away with murder.
Sky News can reveal that former sex workers had told police he was sexually violent.
My Emma.
Free wherever you get your news. It's over, isn't it?
The Americans say he is Rossi, a fraudster.
This has been one of the most bizarre cases ever heard in a courtroom in this country.
A dangerous murderer.
Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive Andrew Ennis after this?
She said she can forgive him, but as long as he's behind bars.
By doing the right thing, it's destroyed your life.
They terrorised me. They intimidated me.
Sky News, the full story first.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed. Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood is rallied around her. It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Now, something that makes us unique, DNA. This is an intro that I should have pre-read.
So DNA.
This is stating the bleeding obvious.
It does make us unique. It holds secrets about ours, about our ancestors, and it has the power to solve some of the world's biggest mysteries, including, I'm just going to say, our next guest is the woman who identified the remains of King Richard III in the car park in Leicester. I have so many questions about this. What a fascinating archaeological discovery. Geneticist Professor Churi King is with us now. Talk us through what happened.
Oh, okay. So I got an email way back in 2011 from a man called Richard Buckley, and he's the co-director of the University of Leicester Archaeological Services. And the email is essentially saying, we're going to be looking for the remains of somebody who's quite famous, who's buried in downtown Leicester. He knew I had this unusual background of genetics and archaeology. And he said, we need somebody who can lead on the excavation side of that and who could identify the remains if we find anyone who looks like a likely candidate.
Like a king.
Like a king. And he says, but I can't tell you who it is. And so I write back going, hang on a second, is this Richard III?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, and he's like, yes, but we're unlikely to find him. He reckoned it'd be about half a day's commitment of my time, and that was how many years ago now?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so essentially we start excavating. The location of the kind of the precinct of the friary where Richard is supposed to have been buried, never been lost. But the precise location of his grave was. So what we're trying to do as archaeologists at this point is, can we find the remains of the friary? We know that Richard is in the choir of the Church of the Friary in Leicester. And so we start putting long trenches in the hopes that we'll find friary walls, and we'll start to work out where we are. And then maybe we can work out where we are. We can go, oh, okay, so we think the church might be over here type thing. As it was, 6 hours, 34 minutes in, we hit a little bit of leg bone. So this was Matthew Morris, he was our archaeologist on site, and he spots a little bit of leg bone, and he hops into the trench, and he's like, you don't just excavate remains willy-nilly, you have to get a license. We've already got money in the budget to excavate up to 6 sets of remains, so we're going to make educated decisions about, is this in the right area, all this kind of thing. And you have to make kind of ethical and educated decisions about which ones you're going to go for. So we leave it covered. There's an articulated skeleton under there, but we don't know where we are. So keep excavating, and we realize after about 2 weeks that actually that skeleton does look like it's down at what is one end of the choir of the church. Let's go and excavate that. And we do, and it's youngish male, battle injuries, severe scoliosis of the spine, and then having to do all the work to prove that it's
amazing. It is one of the most amazing stories. And you've written this book, The Secrets of Our DNA, and to my error on the intro, lots of people obviously aware of the basics, but not of the extraordinary advances in recent years that have transformed the ability for analysis and things that you can do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so when I first started in genetics 30 years ago now, it was just us, in the labs, and you publish the papers and barely anyone would read it. Now it's everywhere. It's, health, it's forensics, it's identifying lost kings, it's just pervades so much of our society. So it's telling people about that and how genetics works, but through stories, because I found that was the way that I learned about genetics.
You said, was there a particular story that struck you when you were like a little girl being interested in it then?
So it was sitting in a lecture theatre in Cambridge. So I was doing archaeology, and our lecturer was telling us about the Romanov case that she had worked on. So this is Tsar Nicholas, his wife, their 5 children, and members of their household during the Bolshevik Revolution. So they're killed. And their remains are hidden in a forest, and they're lost. And they're found again in the 1990s, and they used a combination of archaeology, so looking at the bones, but also genetics, so DNA fingerprinting to show this was a family, but also there was a piece of DNA that they could use to kind of do a bit of an identification. It's called mitochondrial DNA, inherited through the female line, and Prince Philip was a female line relative of the Tsarina.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he very kindly gave his DNA as part of that identification process, and that was it. I was like, that's what I want to do.
Professor, it's been really fascinating. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And The Secrets of Our DNA is out now. Professor King there.
Finally this hour, what a night for Crystal Palace after they secured their first ever European football trophy.
That's right, they won 1-0 against Rayo Vallecano in last night's Conference League final. Here's the winning goal, Jean-Philippe Mateta giving Palace the lead just after half-time.
And that was enough for Palace to earn their first European trophy. The perfect send-off, I should say, for their manager, Oliver Glasner, who leaves the club having won 3 trophies in the last 2 seasons. I mean, what an incredible record.
Amazing record. FA Cup last season, obviously, the Community Shield at the start of this season, and have done it in the face of you know, some core players leaving. Eze in the summer, Gahey in January. Mateta, who scored the winning goal, nearly left in January to Milan. And, you know, I think it's fair to say, on quite a sort of shoestring, reduced squad.
Yeah, absolutely right. You know, they've massively outperformed. I have to say, Palace fans they're a great set of fans as well. I have to say, what a lovely bunch of fans. Amelia Harper was there as those fans started celebrating.
This is an absolutely huge moment for Crystal Palace. They have won the Conference League. This is their first ever European title, their first piece of silverware that they can take home. And all the fans here at Selhurst Park are absolutely thrilled. Straight after the match, we had a huge pitch invasion. The fans here, the 10,000 fans here, made sure that their team all the way over in Leipzig in Germany could hear them cheer. It was 0-0 at half-time, then just after 50 minutes, they managed to score their first goal. The music is increasing. Everybody is getting excited to be here. It was a journey just to get here. They had to win the FA Cup to make it to the European level. Now they have made it to the European level and they have won. The next step now is the Europa League, the next rung in European football. But fans here continue to be very happy all night.
Fantastic stuff there, Amelia Harper enjoying some of those celebrations with the fans. By the way, we're going to talk about that great victory and some other huge football topics, including looking ahead to another European final and to the World Cup with David Seaman, the former England and Arsenal legend, joins us at 9:40 to talk about all of that.
Can't wait for that. It's going to be absolutely fascinating to get his take. I want to hear his tips to the World Cup squad.
Exactly.
That's what I'm thinking about.
9:30 as well, we'll be talking to Dame Kristen Scott-Thomas about her new movie, My Mother's Wedding. Lots still to come.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking.
Thank you so much.
Trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Good morning. It's 8 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Rich and Frost.
With Sophy and Will, good morning from both of us. Lots ahead.
A warning that the UK is at risk of a lost generation unless the government gets to grips with youth unemployment.
Strikes and counter-strikes. Iran and America launch fresh attacks amid conflicting reports of a possible deal.
Britain's drug driving crisis. We confront the offenders behind the wheel and look at why the numbers are so high.
We're also on the ground in southern Lebanon talking to our special correspondent Alex Crawford, who's been doing some remarkable reporting about the dangers facing paramedics.
Plus, Crystal Palace make history, winning their first European trophy in the UEFA Conference League final.
Hello, thanks for being with us today. We're starting the programme with a story that could not be more important. A major review looking at youth unemployment has found getting on the career ladder is now simply out of reach for many. It's the report by the Labour grandee Alan Milburn looking at NEETs, so these people not in education, employment or training, and 1 in 6 of those young people will be on benefits by 2030.
He talks about a lost generation, struggling with anxiety and a shameful system where we spend more on benefits than on helping people get a job. Some of the factors highlighted in the report include the explosion of mobile phones leading to mental health issues, school absences and exclusions, and AI taking entry-level jobs in the workplace.
There's a lot of stats, there's a lot of evidence. I just want to talk you through some of it, some of what was found in this pretty alarming report. So Alan Milburn found currently, so right now, 1 in 8 people aged 16 to 24 in the UK are not in education, employment or training. But crucially, 84% of these, they want to be in a job, right? So it's not through lack of trying. That number could rise to 1 in 6 young people in the next 5 years. So that equates to 1.25 million people. And it's a problem that is pretty ingrained and getting worse because, look, 6 in 10 of these so-called NEETs, so young people who are not in education or in the jobs market, have never had a job. That's up from 4 in 10 in 2005. Before we move on, let's listen to some young people who spoke to our correspondent, Phoebe Southworth.
I've got at least probably about 2 friends who got jobs out of 20 or 30.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, man. And that's only because they've got it from family, because their dad works with them or something, you know what I mean? I can apply for universal credit, but I've already done it, but I don't want to stay in that for even longer than 2-3 months. I want to find a job ASAP, you know what I mean? I don't want to be on the dole. At this point, I might as well go into the army, you know what I mean? Because that's the only thing that's on these job application websites, because you don't need any experience.
The job market is just horrible. It's shocking. Like on Indeed, all you see, people make TikToks about it, joking about it all the time on my For You page. It's care, army. Or you could be a retail manager, but you haven't got the experience, so you can't apply for those jobs. There's no jobs you can apply for.
Some of my friends, they didn't go to college. They left after school, stopped learning, and now they can't really find a job because of that. And obviously now their life, you know, they might resort to something illegal, something that's not good for them.
With school, I got kicked out at 14 because of like truancy and behaviour problems. I don't like being in the house, so like I wouldn't want to do the benefits thing. I'd rather try and find a job and like get to doing stuff.
Here to discuss this all with us. And Lucy, to what extent is this threats from new things like AI versus self-made problems that we can address more easily?
Well, interestingly, Alan Milburn just now said that AI isn't necessarily playing into this just yet. That's not to say that it's not a threat in future. But he criticised, I mean, he says that we've known about these issues for a very long time, we just haven't addressed them. And he's not talking only about education, he's talking about problems with the NHS, the welfare state, the job market. But he does kind of insinuate that actually some of the decisions made in recent years have made this problem even worse. In the job market, Saturday jobs are in free fall. I mean, we've all had Saturday jobs. It's hard to believe, you know, that young people are finding it hard to even get those these days. That decisions made in budgets, you know, we've heard criticism from business leaders, haven't we, about the employers' national insurance going up, the rise in the minimum wage, that impacting decisions to bring on young people. All of these things, he say, decisions that I suppose could be reversed, that could make a difference. But crucially, he's saying incremental change won't cut it. We need something radical. Let's just hear what he said earlier.
Every time an employer takes on a young person, it's always a risk because they're unproven. So the job of government is to minimise the risk, maximise the incentives. But we shouldn't kid ourselves. You know, the changes that I've described in the labour market, they haven't just happened in the last few years. They've been going on for, in some cases, decades. Apprenticeships is a good example. The number of apprenticeship starts amongst young people has fallen by a third in just 10 years. So there's issues not just in the welfare system, but in the education system, the health system, and what we say, our core conclusion is the systems that are supposed to be helping young people from education into employment are no longer fit for purpose. They're not working, and in some cases, they're making the problem worse, not better.
He's compelling what he says, and he doesn't shy away from criticising, you know, the government, as you say. I was also really struck by what he said on social media, because he obviously doesn't want to give away the findings of his report. But I thought he was pretty strong in saying, actually, all the evidence points in one direction.
Yeah, he's made it... He has... You're right, there are more findings to come, but he's made it pretty clear where he thinks the problem lies, and it's with social media. Interestingly, you know, he blasts this criticism that we have a snowflake generation. He says, this is real. The problems that they're facing are real. They're a bedroom generation that have... Their brains have been rewired by smartphones, social media. It's causing anxiety, depression, lack of concentration. All of these things, he said, are real problems that the government needs to face. He kind of was refusing to be too clear, but at the same time saying, well, the evidence is pointing towards a social media ban. And we've seen the pressure on the Prime Minister this week ramp up on that. And I think it's becoming very difficult for the government not to really address this problem.
Did he back the government at the end?
He said that he believes Keir Starmer cares about the problem. But what he did say was... I can't remember the exact quote, but basically, you know, it's one thing caring about it, it's another thing taking action on it. And you find a lot of people are saying this about the Prime Minister at the moment, and I think everybody is now waiting for him to see what that decision will be on social media.
He said that you got sacked as a paper round boy. I thought that was quite funny. What about you? What do you have?
But hasn't been sacked since he said touch wood, but then touch perspex.
He's doing pretty well, isn't he?
That's true, actually. Yeah, that's not very...
He's doing quite well. He's doing quite well.
What about you, Lucy? Did you have a Saturday job?
I did. My first ever job was a Friday night job. It was in my local Chinese takeaway. Oh. And I think it was like £30 in cash, and that paid for my driving lessons. And then I worked in a kind of a gift shop on a Saturday when I was at uni in Cardiff. But you do look back on these jobs, and the point of them was that I had them to put on my CV, and it was work experience that you could kind of flesh out to help you get something else.
Totally. I did leafleting, which I have to say is the most soul-destroying job. I was just standing on a high street. Oh, like any company.
Did you do quite well? Did people come over?
I tried really hard, and then I had this whole thing I was trying to, like, because it was quite boring as well, I was trying to work out if someone would, A, stop and take a leaflet, or B, look at me. And by the end of it, I was quite good at picking them out.
When, as part of this job, we go out and, you know, speak to people, we call it vox popping, don't we? I think you get quite good at knowing who's likely to stop and who's not.
I'm a good vox popper as well.
She's going to stop.
Maybe that's the early leafleting.
I feel very bad for people leafleting because everyone's got headphones, makes it even harder.
Yeah, I know. And
head down.
Yeah.
And it is quite... If you're head down on a phone call or in a podcast, it's less
we should be the people who stop, really, because we do it to other people. But depends on my mood.
Lucy, thank you very much indeed. Lucy McDade speaking to us there.
To Iran now, and there have been dramatic developments overnight with both America and Iran launching strikes on each other.
So Iran say they've targeted a US airbase in response to an American attack on a military target.
Let's go to Sally, who's in Dubai for us as always. Sally, not just huge developments late yesterday and overnight in this regard, but in stark contrast to optimism that dominated the earlier part of the day.
Yeah, that's right. We've been hearing, you know, the US talking up how well diplomacy's been going for a number of days now. And certainly I think in this region, people take all of those sorts of updates with a pinch of salt, because the reality on the ground can feel very different. And certainly that's very much the case this morning. We've seen a second exchange of fire this week between the US and Iran. The US carried out pre-dawn strikes on what they described as a military site in Iran, according to a US official via Reuters. No official confirmation yet via US Central Command, which is unusual. But shortly after that, Kuwait reported that they had incoming fire. Missiles and drones were being intercepted by their air defences. And I heard from a local source there that loud blasts were heard around Kuwait International Airport. And then the Iranians have come out and said that they targeted a US airbase in response to more US strikes. So it is extremely tense and extremely volatile. Kuwait hosts a large US military presence here. It's been a key strategic hub for military operations over Iran, despite officially them keeping quite a neutral posture publicly. So it's very interesting to see this development today, and it's certainly not encouraging when we've been following these diplomatic efforts so closely for the last few days, which have felt like they've been making more progress than we've seen so far in this war. But it seems they can't even agree on the messaging there either. The Iranians came out on state television last night and said that an unofficial draft had been agreed between both sides for some sort of framework when it comes to a memorandum of understanding, and that would include the US withdrawing its troops from around Iran and lifting the naval blockade on Iranian ports. Well, the US came out very quickly and rubbished those claims, calling them complete fabrication. That said, at the same time, they're still saying that talks are progressing quite nicely, and Donald Trump has said that, essentially if a deal isn't reached, then all options are still on the table. So we are hearing very conflicting messaging from the US administration in terms of how well these talks are going. But it seems that both sides are also trying to control the messaging when it comes to these negotiations, at the same time as controlling these very tense military flare-ups, trying to keep it below the threshold of open conflict during this very fragile ceasefire. So I would say that confidence in this region that we're going to see some sort of imminent breakthrough is low, and there is a sense that potentially this period of controlled tension that we're seeing now with regular, military clashes, that this could just rumble on for months, which is causing a lot of damage to Gulf economies, but also making them extremely vulnerable to these sorts of retaliatory attacks like we've seen on Kuwait this morning.
Sally, as always, great stuff. Thanks so much for that. And unsurprisingly, oil's on the rise this morning. Once again, in light of this, we've got below 95 on Brent crude earlier part of the week, now back up closer to 100, up 3 or 4% today, $98 a barrel.
Now, I think there's been a spotlight for a long time on drink driving, and everyone is very, very aware of the issues that causes. But drug driving is actually a much bigger issue than many of us realise. More people have actually been arrested for driving under the influence of drugs than alcohol.
There are both more arrests and more repeat offending, with drug drivers almost 5 times as likely to get behind the wheel again while under the influence.
Greg Myland's been taking a look at why the problem's so bad.
We've been confronting Britain's drug drivers. You've got kids in the car.
Come on, Millet, stay away from me, lad.
Yeah, bang to rights. I've been smoking. I smoke fairly regular, to be truthful.
The impact of drug driving can be dramatic, and it's getting worse.
So at this moment in time, you're under arrest, all right, for a positive drug wipe.
I'd say it's bigger than drink driving nowadays.
Look at what this car, driven by someone on cocaine, unleashed. We've spoken to that driver.
Look at me, it could have been so much worse. It could have been like 20 fatalities.
I've reported on the fatal consequences of drug driving. But for all the police action, it's still taking months to get them off the roads.
There is a frustration because they're probably committing that offence over and over, realistically.
Other countries do get drug drivers off the road right away. So who are they? Who are Britain's drug drivers?
You can see the rest of that report by scanning the QR code on your screen. Last hour, we spoke to Lindsay Stewart, whose brother Tim was killed in 2024 by a dangerous driver on bail for another crash, and she says that her brother's death was preventable.
He was in the passenger seat, his girlfriend Wendy was driving, and the offender came on their side of the road, overtook a van on a blind bend and smashed straight into them, doing about 65 miles per hour. Wendy sustained serious injuries and Tim died at the scene. It's just absolutely devastated our family and the wider community. He was a much-loved person, a beautiful soul.
We can talk about maternity care next. The number of women dying in childbirth is actually going up, which is a story which I believe is pretty shameful, I'll be honest. It's also a story that we've covered a lot on Sky News. And we've been overwhelmed by the response from women, and dads as well, I should say, about the experience that they've had giving birth in the UK. So we're going to talk now about a documentary that we have out today that is based on 400,000 mentions of maternity care online to try and find stories, opinions, what's really happening from mothers and also from medical staff. So YouTube, Instagram, Mumsnet were all monitored for over 2 years in some groundbreaking research. Let's have a look at our investigation.
I'm just about to go and see the little premature baby. What have we got there? Oh, what a beautiful boy!
Having a baby can be one of the most magical times of a woman's life.
I am 30 weeks plus 2 days pregnant. The bump is getting very, very big.
Went for weigh-in this week. We finally crossed over above 8 pounds.
The midwives were amazing. They felt like my sisters.
It can also be a moment of great vulnerability and at times danger.
It was frantic. People were shouting over everyone.
She just sort of snapped at me and just went, "I'm not here to help you."
The UK's maternity services are at breaking point, and the staff are broken too.
What do you want? More jobs! When do you want it? Now!
This job can be amazing, but in too many cases it actually destroys the people who are providing that service.
There are too many patients with too many complex needs, and there are not enough of us.
By following women, their babies and healthcare staff, and tracking the many thousands of conversations taking place online about maternity, our investigation reveals some of the greatest concerns for those going through the system and the human cost of not addressing them.
I remember putting her on my knee and I'm saying to her, "Not yet, please don't leave me, don't go."
It's just heartbreaking, some of these stories. We're joined by Dr. Kim Thomas, who is the Chief Executive of the Birth Trauma Association. In the documentary, we really tried to show that this is not all women, right? You know, lots of women and mums go into hospital and they have a positive experience and they come back and they have amazing babies with them and very, very happy, parenthood after that. But it's going wrong too often. I think that's fair to say.
Yes, I think that's true. I mean, I don't want to say that it's every maternity unit or every midwife or obstetrician, but there are enough times when it goes wrong to be a real concern. As in some of the stories that we just heard, some cases where conditions aren't misdiagnosed, babies die unnecessarily or brain injured unnecessarily, and often accompanied by kind of harshness and cruelty that makes the whole experience even worse.
I think the harshness and the cruelty in particular is actually quite an important word to use, I think, because some of the things that have shocked me as part of this investigation is how we deal with loss, baby loss, like women who have had a miscarriage or have lost a baby put on wards next to mums who have their babies in their arms. It just feels, I guess, kind of dehumanising.
Yes, it is, and it's heartbreaking. Some of those stories. We hear from women whose babies have been stillborn, and as you say, they're put on a ward. With mums who've got living babies, or they're told, that they're. I'm sort of thinking of one woman who was told, you don't sound upset.
Oh, my goodness me.
Which seems astonishing.
It's astonishing.
Or getting the baby's name wrong, that sometimes happens when a baby's died. That kind of lack of personal care, is quite shocking. And that's what stays with you as well. It's not just the fact you've lost your baby, it's that kind of casual kind of indifference or cruelty that women sometimes experience from staff.
You have worked in this area and you really looked into this area. What do you think needs to happen?
I think what we need is a cultural change, which is often the hardest thing to do, I think, anywhere. But, you know, you need to have a situation where women's concerns are taken seriously, so they report that they're, you know, they have a symptom that is taken seriously and looked at. But I think you need to do this from a top-down level. You need kind of some sensible way of saying this is what should happen in maternity. And you sort of need better teamwork, and you need better reporting of incidents. Stop covering up, you know, so that, you know, this is something we see again and again, is the kind of cover up when something goes wrong. So we need a much more transparent system. And I think that can only kind of happen really when that is imposed from the top, and that we have some kind of way of making sure that change happens throughout the system.
Yeah, just to say that it really does reflect what we found in this investigation. The whole point of it is that we've been overwhelmed by women coming forward and dads coming forward telling us what happened to them, and we're just trying to listen and to share the stories of an overwhelming, frankly, number of people. And I think perhaps the thing that came up more than any other sentiment was this feeling of not being listened to.
Yes.
Like the lack of autonomy.
And this is what we hear all the time, you know, is that women will report something's wrong and they're told not to stop making a fuss. I mean, I can think of one woman in the report that recently came out about Wales who reported bleeding and pain in pregnancy, and she was told she was a hypochondriac, and actually her baby died. So, you know, it can be the difference between life and death, just sort of listening to a woman talk, saying, you know...
And it's worse, of course, if you are not from a white background as well, right? You're more likely to be ignored.
You are more likely to be ignored, and we know that stillbirth rates for black women are twice as high. Maternal mortality rates are more than twice as high for black women. And, you know, so black women report being told, you know, that they're aggressive or that they're making a fuss. And that, of course, that makes it very hard then to advocate for yourself if you risk being treated like that.
Yeah,
that's a very difficult line to tread.
I interviewed an incredibly brave black woman who lost twins. Their babies died, and she said that she fell foul of the stereotype that if you're a black woman, you can cope with pain more, you're strong, and she felt that she had to kind of live up to that as well, and then it wasn't listened to. And it's just heartbreaking when you hear about the babies being lost in this way, and a trauma that will never leave you. We've got a new health secretary. I saw you raise your eyebrows there.
Yeah.
It's probably not ideal when you want things to get sorted out, to have a completely new person in the job, however good they may be.
Yes, I mean, West Streeting showed an interest in maternity, and although he often came under criticism, he did listen to families. You know, he met with families. He set up an investigation. You know, the Amos Review, which is being published next month, and he set up a maternity task force, which he was going to chair. And now all that kind of interest, concern, and knowledge has gone, and we've got somebody who, I hope he does a good job, but we've never seen any signs that he's shown any interest in maternity before, so he's got quite a steep learning curve apart from anything else.
That's interesting that he hasn't really been... And look, this is not every politician is going to be involved in everything, right? So it's not criticism, but you don't think he has necessarily got a track record in...
No, not as far as we can see. So it's not, that's not his fault, of course, but it seems like an odd appointment, really, when there are MPs in Parliament who are clinicians, the sort of doctors and nurses who've got some kind of background in maternity. So,
has he spoken to people like yourself? Has he reached out to anyone in the maternity arena?
I don't know, actually. I mean, he hasn't reached out to us, but that's not entirely surprising. But I'm hoping he will. Yes,
yeah. Well, there you go. James Murray, new Secretary of State for Health. Get in touch. Speak to us. Thank you very much for being with us. It's been, really, really good to have you here and advocating for all those women and families that you've spoken to. So we appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Now, changing pace a little bit. What a night of celebration and glory for Crystal Palace after they secured their first ever European trophy.
That's right. They won 1-0, a relief against Rayo Vallecano in last night's Conference League final.
Here is the winning goal, Jean-Philippe Mateta, giving Palace the lead just after half-time.
And that was enough. That one goal there. Look at what it means to the fans. I love it. It was their first European trophy and the perfect send-off for manager Oliver Glasner, who leaves the club having won no less than 3 trophies in the last 2 seasons, a record Arsenal could only dream of.
Let's bring in and just focus on the good news, which is all Palace glory, and bring in James Savundra from Sky Sports, who joins us outside the team hotel. James, sum up last night for us, but in reverse order. Have we seen the players this morning? I presume not. Probably not even that many fans who hopefully had a late night celebrating.
Well, good morning to you both. It was an incredible evening. The Conference League was designed for nights like last night. Rayo Vallecano, they played their part. Their fans were incredible. It was their first ever major final. As for Crystal Palace, the Oliver Glasner tenure ends with a major European trophy. Crystal Palace in their first ever European final. It has been an incredible 12 months or so to be a Crystal Palace fan. They won their first ever major trophy at Wembley last season, winning the FA Cup at Wembley Stadium. But now, fast forward, they should have been in the Europa League this season. They were demoted to the Conference League, but that didn't stop them. They won last night, and that ensures another European journey for these Crystal Palace fans next season, because they will be playing in the Europa League. And Oliver Glasner has done an incredible job as head coach of Crystal Palace. I understand he didn't go to bed until 6:30 a.m. this morning. Who can blame him? He deserved to celebrate it. This squad deserved to celebrate it, because the bond between the players is incredible. The connection between the players and the fan base is so special. And I think it's worth bearing in mind the journey that Crystal Palace have been on as a football club. In 2010, they went into administration. They suffered a 10-point deduction. They were plunged into a relegation battle, which could have seen them playing football in League One, the 3rd division of English football. But they came so close to liquidation, they survived, and they have thrived, especially over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. So it's been wonderful seeing the memories that have been created amongst the Crystal Palace supporters over the course of the last few days. But it was made even more special by a memorable night in Leipzig last night.
Absolutely, and even in the short term, you know, they've lost some great players. They're now going to have to lose their manager again. It's another challenge, but you wouldn't bet against them going forward. James, thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. 6:30 a.m. It's good from Oliver Glasner, staying up that late. By the way, we'll be joined to discuss that, but also the World Cup upcoming, the Champions League final upcoming, the former Arsenal and England legend David Seaman. He'll be joining us at 9:40, so stay tuned for that.
Can't wait for that one. We'll also be taking a look at the pretty scathing statement this morning from the ousted BP boss, Albert Manifold. He's hit out at lies about his sacking.
urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to war.
I'm just going to put some body armour on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
Welcome back. Well, we broke last hour the fact that the ousted chair of BP has released a scathing response to his removal from the company over claims relating to his conduct and management style.
So Albert Manifold pushed back on allegations of bullying inside BP, saying he doesn't accept the lies that were told about him.
Well, our city editor Mark Kleiman joins us. He's been doing tons of reporting on this over the last few days. Mark, this is a long and robust statement to push back from him.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary statement, Wilf. You see this sort of thing from a chairman of a big public company in Britain very, very rarely. And what Albert Manifold is saying here is that he was recruited with a particular job in mind, which was to shake up BP. BP is in a very difficult position strategically at the moment, to the extent that last year there was lots of speculation that its big rival Shell was going to mount a takeover bid for it. So it's become pretty clear over the last 9 months since Albert Manifold came in, fired the chief executive of BP, Murray Auchincloss, and replaced him with the first female CEO in BP's history, Meg O'Neill, that he wants to deliver change rapidly. Now, that has clearly come at a cost to the niceties of that we often hear about in British boardrooms. And in fact, in the statement that Albert Manifold has issued today, he addresses that. He talks about the fact that when he saw unnecessary or excessive spending inside BP, he called it out. He had no interest, he says, in having a dedicated chauffeur-driven limousine at my beck and call on the occasions I was in London. I had no interest in taking private aviation, nor in availing myself of corporate tickets for sporting events. What's interesting about this is that it sets the stage, I think, for quite a messy legal battle between Mr Manifold and the company at a time when it really can't afford it. Now, in his longer statement, Wilf, what Albert Manifold has said is that he does not accept lies which are being told about me, nor that anyone should be allowed to hide behind anonymity when commenting on my time at BP. Is it possible that in my determination to drive change on costs, performance, the balance sheet and shareholder communications, I pushed hard and challenged people directly? Yes, it is. But there is a considerable distance between driving an organisation with urgency and the characterisation of my conduct that is now being put about. And I think, for context, the last couple of days have seen a lot of anonymous sources, including some company insiders who have spoken to me, talking about Mr Manifold's behaviour during his short stint at the company, allegations that he was belittling executives, both junior and senior, that he was aggressive, that he had a volcanic temper, that he was trying to micromanage the chief executive that he himself had recruited. And as I say, this could be dismissed as just another kind of boardroom ruction that we see from time to time in at the top level of British businesses. But this is a company which matters. It is vulnerable at the moment. Yes, its profits have been buoyed by the soaring oil prices in the wake of the Iran war. But this is a company whose future matters to the country, and the prolonging of the psychodrama that we've seen at BP so many times in recent years is certainly not in the company's interests, nor in its shareholders, and arguably not in Britain's either.
And just quickly, he does back quite loudly and clearly Meg O'Neill, the CEO who he had been central to appointing.
Yeah, I mean, he is very complimentary about Meg O'Neill. He describes her as ambitious and very talented, and he says that he does believe that both Meg O'Neill and Kate Thompson, the chief financial officer at BP, that they will navigate the company, he says, through the difficult waters ahead as BP manages its balance sheet. I mean, he himself was responsible for Meg O'Neill's appointment. It would be incredibly surprising if after 7 months, even amid this tumult within the boardroom, if he had changed his opinion of her. But I think, as I say, this is a long, almost unprecedented statement from the chairman of a company of the size of BP. And I think it does indicate that this isn't the last we will hear from Albert Manifold about this episode.
Mark, great stuff. Thanks so much.
Talking next about the outbreak of Ebola that there's increasing concern about. Uganda has now closed its border with the Democratic Republic of Congo to try and control the Ebola outbreak, which is worsening in the DRC.
And there are now more than 1,000 suspected cases in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and it's particularly worrying because it's a strain with no approved medicines or vaccines. We're joined now by Trudy Lang, a professor of global health research at Oxford University and the director of the Global Health Network. Thanks so much for joining us. How significant a step is it in these sorts of things, thankfully relatively rare sorts of things, when you see national borders needing to be shut?
Well, I think it's a reflection of the emerging concern that we have for this recurrence of this quite unusual species that we haven't seen for many years. And of course, the surrounding countries to the DRC are taking action on that. But really the concern lies now within those communities in the affected areas. And that's where it's unfolding, and there's lots of rapid action to try and contain and protect the communities and the health workers that are in those settings.
We spoke to a health worker from Uganda a couple of days ago, and what they said really stayed with me. They were effectively saying that they have quite a resilient healthcare system in Uganda, but because of the lack of that in the Democratic Republic of Congo, it has been able to really take root and spread in a way that is quite alarming. Just how bad, I guess, are the healthcare systems in the DRC? And of course, it has been worsened, hasn't it, by the fighting there too?
Yeah, look, this is unfolding in one of the most vulnerable, marginalised settings these things can happen. I work with colleagues very closely in those regions because we've been working in the last year or so on the Mpox outbreak, and I've worked previously with them on the last Ebola outbreak. And it's, this area of DRC it's a huge country, and it borders with Uganda, Rwanda and Burundi. These are mining villages. As you say, there's local unrest. It's really difficult to operate. And these are amazingly resilient communities, and there's, very busy economies, people moving in and out as usually across the borders. And it's really difficult. It's very hard so the action needs to be really local from the local government healthcare providers with international support. But these are incredibly difficult places to operate. And for my colleagues that are working there now, it's the same as they've been experiencing with dealing with Mpox, and now this is layered on top. So it's incredibly hard.
We said in the intro that this particular strain is a big worry because there's no current drugs to treat it or vaccines to treat it. So bring us up to speed on this. So for Ebola more broadly, because of its outbreaks in past decades, is it treatable now? And I guess to put a positive spin on it, is it hopeful that this will be treatable in due course or not?
Yeah, and so with Ebola, it's there's several different species, and the one we've got most used to dealing with is the Zaire species that for which there's a vaccine and also some therapeutics. But it's really the vaccine that we go in with first and do what's called a ring vaccination to really vaccinate the most vulnerable people, family members and healthcare workers. What we have here is a species that we haven't seen for about over a decade. And so the vaccines and even the diagnostics, and this is important, weren't sensitive to that strain. So we all got familiar, didn't we, through COVID, and we know with the flu that we have to change the vaccines and change the diagnostics just a bit to adjust to the change in the species that happens. And this is what we have to do now for this particular species of Ebola. The vaccine platforms are there, but we have to swap out the piece that is sensitive to this species, and then that needs to be tested and manufactured and, of course, rolled out in this really difficult area. And then, of course, we've got to look for diagnostics. And so right now, the most pressing thing that can be done is to get as many diagnostics into the region so we can really make sure people are diagnosed as quickly as possible and they're put into isolation and you can care for the healthcare workers and their family members and keep everybody safe. And the real priority is putting into practice what we've learned. And, you know, there really is truly excellent global collaboration on this, supporting that local action. And in previous outbreaks, even though it was a Zaire strain, in Uganda, for example, the response was excellent and it was contained very quickly. There's sort of 2-3 things at play here, which is why the WHO called this out as such a challenge. It is this different species. It is in this very difficult to work in, unsettled, very difficult area. And also it's, we've really got to get in and do that community engagement and education through this local supported initiatives to really help contain the risk and try and reduce transmission and keep people from passing it on in the communities, which is the most pressing challenge we've got right now.
Professor Lang, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about Iran next, because there have been fresh strikes between Iran and the United States of America overnight.
These attacks are casting even more doubt about whether the ceasefire between the two will hold. Joining us to discuss all of this, the former senior advisor at the US State Department, Niga Anger. Thanks so much for joining us. I mean, these latest exchanges of fire come on a day, yesterday, when the morning began with great hopes about the Strait reopening in a 30-day time frame. Where are your hopes on those positive potential outcomes this morning?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. Look, we're, I think, in a very sort of dangerous negotiating theater at the moment. And both sides are performing for their domestic audience as much as they are for each other. As you can imagine, President Trump right now needs to show that he did not start a costly war only to end up in a worse version of pre-war problems. The Iranian leadership needs to show did not survive months of pressure only to accept humiliation. And so that makes a compromise harder because every practical concession has to be wrapped up in some sort of language of strength or, some sort of performative action of strength. And so that's essentially risking, what both sides understand a deal needs to entail. And that's why we're in a very tricky zone where, we feel hopeful one day and we're going to be concerned the next day. And again, because there's so much public posturing for domestic audiences.
How difficult is it to, work out what the president is really thinking when it comes to Iran?
Again, I think for him right now, it seems like a lot more of public posturing and domestic, sort of what the U.S. domestic audience will engage with. We have to bear in mind, we are now in sort of what's considered the summer months in the United States. Families are going on holiday. The gas prices are extremely high. Inflation prices are extremely high in terms of buying groceries. So he needs to focus on his domestic audience. A lot of what's happening, it's the secondary, tertiary impacts of the Hormuz being closed for so long. And again, the United States spending so much money on this war in Iran, and the Americans not necessarily feeling it in a positive way on their pocketbooks. And we're, of course, in the middle of sort of the uptake in terms of midterm elections. So the president, to be quite frank, I think is very focused on his domestic audience and wants to sort of find a way to wrap up this war, but in a way that makes him have a sort of victory type language, because again, that will be very important for his domestic audience.
If the midterms are a sort of looming 5 months away pressure point for President Trump, what's the state of the Iranian economy and what level of pressure is it putting on the IRGC?
Again, the Iranian regime equally is having to engage with its own domestic audience and its own hardliners as well. The public mood inside Iran right now is awful, right? The Iranian people are fearful. The economic strain is incredible. You know, internet access has only partially returned after what was an 88-day blackout. Inflation continues to remain severe. Again, we forget that the protests in December, January began because people couldn't buy meat at the market, couldn't buy bread at the market, and the situation has continued to worsen. And then you have sort of, the Iranian people themselves just tired. They need, there's a plea for sanctions relief so that they can again be able to have a purchasing power. They don't necessarily support the regime, but the regime, on the other hand, is also trying to show resilience. They also need to be able to explain to their own public that this, what they endured was not necessarily capitulation or humiliation in terms of reaching a deal with the Americans. And so right now, sort of the focus again is back on the economics, back on just trying to be at peace. When, as you can imagine, when inflation is high, when people have lost their jobs, they're not able to buy basic goods at the supermarket, poverty increases, being stealing and theft increases. So people are fearful. It's not just theft happening in more posh environments within, the capital, for example. It's happening all across the capital. So fear is quite high right now.
Points that you're making, really important points, and really outlaying, I think, how the American people are feeling and how it may, impact the war as well. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Time for a quick look at the weather next.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
The heat is building again today, although we're not quite set to beat Tuesday's record high. After today, though, temperatures will slowly start to ease back. For now, it's a warm and mostly fine start for many of us, although northern England has a few thunderstorms. They'll ease and clear through the morning, leaving most places dry with plenty of sunshine. Some misty low cloud and drizzle will affect parts of Ireland and southwest Britain, especially around Irish sea coasts. Northern and eastern parts look warmer than yesterday.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Coming up, we are going to be talking to our special correspondent Alex Crawford on the ground in southern Lebanon.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Nice to see you. How are you feeling?
Looking forward to getting into the parliamentary chamber.
Are you any further forward to making a decision?
No, it's an important day today.
All of the claims were in line with my parliamentary duties, so I'm making that clear to you, Conor.
He was a Scot through and through.
He was a very good politician.
Alex Salmond was controversial, he was a disruptor, but above all, he was respected.
Will you resign if you lose this week?
Again, I'm not planning to, of course, lose the vote of no confidence. I'm planning to win that vote of no confidence.
His face said it all.
My intention to stand down as party leader.
This is now a storm with deadly consequences. How are they feeling?
They're a bit scared at the minute.
We've been told to evacuate.
How are you feeling?
Devastated.
Hundreds of homes were wiped out by flooding. I'm Conor Gillis, Sky's Scotland correspondent.
It was probably the darkest time in my life.
Scott is 5 years sober after a cocaine addiction left him close to death. Scotland has a shameful record. Worse than England, the worst in Europe.
Why not just say you failed? Because then you might get more respect from families who've lost loved ones.
This is where one of the UK's most prolific rapists thought he'd got away with murder. Sky News can reveal that former sex workers had told police he was sexually violent.
My Emma.
Free wherever you get your news. It's over, isn't it? The Americans say he is Rossi, a fraudster. This has been one of the most bizarre cases ever heard in a courtroom in this country. A dangerous murderer. Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive Andrew Ennis after this?
She said she can forgive him, but as long as he's behind bars.
By doing the right thing, it's destroyed your life.
They terrorised me. They intimidated me.
Sky News. The full story first.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed. Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting. The whole neighborhood has rallied around her. It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty.
War isn't pretty.
Welcome back. Let's take you to Lebanon now, where paramedics are increasingly coming under attack by Israel. More than 20 have been killed since last month, despite, of course, the ceasefire supposedly being in place.
Our special correspondent Alex Crawford travelled to Mabatia in southern Lebanon to see how those vital workers are dealing with the constant threat, a warning that some viewers may find her report distressing.
The life of a paramedic in Lebanon is full of danger right now. The first responders don body armour and helmets to enter the war zone that's outside. There have been multiple strikes in Nabatea for days now. It's one of two major southern cities which the Israeli military is forcibly emptying. The Israeli military insists it's rooting out Hezbollah. To many Lebanese, it feels like collective punishment. The first responders know a few hundred people still remain in Nabatea, but they also know by turning up here to rescue the wounded puts themselves at risk. More than 20 medics have been killed during what's meant to be a truce. The Lebanese Health Ministry says they're being deliberately killed. The paramedics now wear GoPros to every call to counter Israeli claims that ambulances are being used to ferry Hezbollah fighters or weapons. What you're about to see will be upsetting to some and shows graphic injuries. There seem to be at least 4 people badly wounded. The first spotted is trapped under branches. A second is lying face down with critical head injuries, but appears to be conscious and moaning for help. They get him on a stretcher and between them inch the casualty over the twisted debris. This is a scene being repeated all across the south, and it's the rescuers who are the crucial link to any medical care nearby.
Well, Alex joins us now from Beirut. Alex, you spent a lot of time now reporting in this conflict zone. What is the reality you're discovering on the ground?
Well, the reality is that much of the south of Lebanon is devastated by Israeli airstrikes and drone strikes. There are huge swathes of the south which are uninhabitable. You cannot recognise them. And the situation has got a whole lot worse over this past few days, with the Israeli Prime Minister declaring and ordering the Israeli military to increase its attacks in South Lebanon. And over the past few days, we've seen not only forced evacuation orders for 2 of the big major cities, Nabatea, where we were with the ambulance crews, but also Tyre, the capital of the south, being forced to evacuate. They've large population areas, and then even further, more extreme orders from those. The entirety of the south of Lebanon, right up to the Zarani River, has been told to leave their homes, or they face dying or being injured, because the Israeli military has declared the whole of this area, which is about 15% of the country of Lebanon has been declared a combat zone. I don't know whether you can hear it, Sophie, but there's an Israeli drone circling us right now here in Beirut. Now, the Lebanese authorities, the Lebanese government say that that is an infringement of their territorial sovereignty, that shouldn't be happening. And remember, there was an agreed truce which came into place on April the 17th. It's been extended up until July, but the reality on the ground is that on a daily basis, people are dying. They had the highest number of people dying just a couple of days ago, more than 30 in one day. There have been bomb strikes this morning, a whole string of airstrikes in Tyre and Nabatea. And for the people of Lebanon, particularly in the south, it's a terrifying situation.
Alex, where does the government in Lebanon stand at the moment in terms of what scale of pushback they're offering to Israel and, of course, the US and the West?
Well, the Lebanese government, primarily the whole peace talks and the historic first-time direct meetings with Israel, known in this country as the enemy to many people, was pushed by the Lebanese Prime Minister and the Lebanese President. They have been engaged in a round of talks to try to bring an end to this. Hezbollah, the military group which Israel is trying to stop firing and using drones into North Israel, has not been included in those talks, and that is the nub of the problem. Hezbollah is funded and supported by Iran. The negotiators in Tehran want to link this all with a US, Iran, Israel peace deal. And if you remember, in April, they wouldn't go ahead with any deal with America or Israel unless there was an agreed ceasefire in Lebanon. But the ceasefire has not been in operation almost from day one, and certainly on the ground there are people dying on a daily basis, but also Israel has failed to achieve its strategic position. So the Lebanese government is very much being criticised for not being able to stop these daily bombings, and it's a pretty horrendous situation for those on the ground.
Alex, great stuff. Thanks so much for that, and well worth seeing Alex's full reporting by scanning the QR code or going online. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with lots more the other side of this.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
morning, it is 9 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophy and Wilf, a very good morning from me as well.
A warning, the UK is at risk of a lost generation unless the government gets a grip on youth unemployment.
Strikes and counter-strikes. Iran and America launch fresh attacks amid conflicting reports of a possible deal.
Britain's drug driving crisis will confront the offenders behind the wheel and look at why the numbers are so high.
Also today, we're speaking to the former England and Arsenal goalkeeper David Seaman ahead of Arsenal's Champions League title decider this weekend.
And I'm excited for this one, acting royalty. Dame Kristin Scott Thomas steps behind the camera. She'll join us in the studio to discuss her directorial debut.
An action-packed hour ahead. We begin with the alarming warning of the state of play for young people after a major review has looked at youth unemployment and found getting on the career ladder is now simply out of reach for many. It's a report by the Labour grandee, former Health Secretary Alan Milburn, looking at so-called NEETs, that's people who are not in education, employment or training, and found that 1 in 6 of those young people will be on benefits by 2030.
So Alan Milburn talks about a lost generation, struggling with anxiety and a shameful system where we spend more on benefits than on helping people get a job. And he highlights things like the explosion of mobile phones leading to mental health issues, school exclusions, and also the threat of AI in the future too. There's lots of stats in here, so I just want to walk you through some of them as well, because it is worth pausing and lingering on some of them. So this is the first one, the headline one. 1 in 8 people aged between 16 and 24 in the UK are currently not in education, employment or training. But 84% of them want to be, right? So that is a crucial part of the jigsaw. That could rise to 1 in 6 young people in the next 5 years, 125 million people if we don't do anything about it. And it's an ingrained problem. So look at this, 6 in 10 of these NEETs, the economically inactive young people, have never had a job. That is up from 4 in 10 back in 2005. Let's hear from some of those young people who spoke to our correspondent Phoebe Southworth.
I've got at least probably about 2 friends who got jobs out of 20 or 30.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, man. And that's only because they've got it from family, because their dad works with them or something, you know what I mean? I can apply for universal credit, but I've already done it, but I don't want to stay in that for even longer than 2-3 months. I want to find a job ASAP, you know what I mean? I don't want to be on the dole. At this point, I might as well go into the army, you know what I mean? Because that's the only thing that's on these job application websites, because you don't need any experience.
The job market is just horrible. It's shocking. Like on Indeed, all you see, people make TikToks about it, joking about it all the time on my For You page. It's care, army. Or you could be a retail manager, but you haven't got the experience, so you can't apply for those jobs. There's no jobs you can apply for.
Some of my friends, they didn't go to college. They left after school, stopped learning, and now they can't really find a job because of that. And obviously now their life, you know, they might resort to something illegal, something that's not good for them.
With school, I got kicked out at 14 because of like truancy and behaviour problems. I don't like being in the house, so like I wouldn't want to do the benefits thing. I'd rather try and find a job and like get to doing stuff.
Well, let's bring in our political correspondent Lucy McDade. I'll be honest, I'm just so depressed, frankly, when I listen to those young people about how hard it is for people who are desperate to get their first step onto the ladder and just not being able to.
Yeah, and it feels, in terms of kind of political news at the moment, we're just being overloaded by these stories about how hard it is for younger generations, whether we're talking about graduates, student loans, getting on the housing ladder, the birth rate going down, and, you know, we wonder why, and then talking about people, young people who aren't in education or employment or training. It's just, it is depressing, it's bleak, and this really lays bare, this report from Alan Milburn, a former health secretary, lays bare the reality. And the government is trying to address this. You know, the government hasn't, it's not like the government hasn't acknowledged that this is a big problem, but what he is saying is that they need to go much, much further because this is massive. And let's just hear what he said, because he said to you earlier, this isn't just a concern now, we're talking about a widespread fear. Let's just listen.
This is the most visceral issue that I've known in 40 years in politics or public policy. I was going to say there's a concern. It's actually a fear, I think, in society now, amongst parents and grandparents, about the future of their kids, about their ability to get a job, a home, a decent career, a good future. And that's about AI, mental health, the after effects of the pandemic, all of this lack of opportunity in society. The social contract is built on a very, very simple basis, which is you put in effort, you get a reward. Each generation should do better than the previous generation. That's a contract that's been broken. Our job of this generation, we've got to fix it.
There was so much in it, Lucy, including in the conversation. Maybe we break it into two parts. And the first part being the extent to which, yes, this has evolved over a decade and it's multiple different governments are responsible, but whether there are short-term policies that have made the situation worse, which he did say was the case.
Yeah, he said that governments have known about this for a very long time, but did kind of suggest that it's being made much more difficult for businesses to hire young people. And so you look at some of the decisions that have been made by the government, and yes, this is a government that came into office, was financially very challenged and said it had to make difficult decisions. But, the minimum wage has gone up, but at the same time, employers' national insurance contributions have gone up. And we've heard plenty of times on this programme, businesses saying it is increasingly difficult to hire young people. So you've got that element of it, but also he speaks about the rise of social media and how this is creating a generation of people that have a number of really genuine challenges. This isn't a group of young people that are faking it, as we often hear this criticism of laziness, faking it, kind of just staying in their bedrooms. Actually, they're finding this new world, this new digital age, really, really difficult.
Yeah, it was pretty clear, I thought, that he thinks there should be a ban on under-16s.
Yeah, he said it was all the evidence is pointing in one direction. He's now not the only kind of credible person saying this. The government said on that we'll get a decision within weeks. It's becoming very difficult to see how they can justify not listening to all of the advice.
Really great stuff, Lucy, as always. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lucy. To Iran, there have been some pretty dramatic developments overnight with both America and Iran launching strikes on each other.
Iran say they've targeted a US airbase in response to an American attack on a military target. Let's go straight to Sally in Dubai for us. Sally, clearly those great hopes that once again were elevated towards a more lasting peace deal and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz that we had earlier in this week are once again seeming unfounded.
Yeah, I think there's always a great amount of scepticism in this region, Wilf, whenever we hear the US administration talking up how well diplomatic talks are going, because the reality on the ground can feel very different, as we've seen twice now this week. In a matter of days, the US and Iran have exchanged fire once again in the early hours of this morning. Before dawn, there were reports via Reuters from a US official that was speaking to Reuters, reporting that a military site was targeted by US strikes in the south of the country for a second time this week because it was posing a threat to US forces and commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. And then very shortly after that, Kuwait reported incoming fire, that their air defences were intercepting missiles and drones fired at the country. And I heard from a source who said that they heard loud blasts around Kuwait International Airport around 5:45 this morning. And Iran said, that they responded targeting a US airbase because of these strikes by America on Iran. They said that it was the strikes on this morning were targeting Bandar Abbas, which is a port city in the south of the country on the Strait of Hormuz. And we've heard more threats from Iran again that any of these actions by the US will not go unanswered. It's become quite a familiar sequence of events now, but all of this, of course, is happening while the two sides are wrangling over the detail of a possible deal to end this war. And it doesn't sound like it's going as well as perhaps the US administration would like to portray to the rest of the world. Certainly Iran published a report and reported on state media last night that they had reached some sort of draft agreement with the US over a memorandum of understanding in terms of the points that they would agree on to end this war, which would include the US withdrawing its forces from around Iran and lifting the US naval blockade on Iranian ports. Well, the US came out very quickly and rubbished those claims, calling them complete fabrication. But at the same time, Donald Trump, following his cabinet meeting, said that Iran was desperate for a deal and that they might just have to finish the job if Iran didn't agree to one. So we're still hearing all sorts of mixed messaging. It does feel like all options are still on the table, threats from both sides trying to control the narrative when it comes to just how well these negotiations are going. And at the same time, these regular clashes militarily, which is making this region extremely nervous because, of course, the ceasefire is so fragile. And there is a lot of concern that the diplomacy won't progress as quickly as the US administration hopes. I think there's low confidence in this region that we're going to see some sort of deal anytime soon. That said, diplomacy is still alive, and that's important. But I think there is a lot of concern here in this region that we are going to see months of this very controlled tension that could just rumble on, causing damage to Gulf economies, but also leaving them very vulnerable to the sort of retaliatory attacks from Iran that Kuwait has seen this morning.
Sally, as always, thanks so much for that. Unsurprisingly, oil prices up again a bit this morning, up 2.5%, $96.50 for Brent crude.
Now, the ousted chair of BP has released a pretty extraordinary response to his removal from the company over claims relating to his conduct.
Albert Manifold pushed back on allegations of bullying inside BP, saying he does not accept lies told about him. Here's Mark Kleiman, our city editor, with more.
You see this sort of thing from a chairman of a big public company in Britain very, very rarely. And what Albert Manifold is saying here is that he was recruited with a particular job in mind, which was to shake up BP. BP is in a very difficult position strategically at the moment, to the extent that last year there was lots of speculation that its big rival Shell was going to mount a takeover bid for it. So it's become pretty clear over the last 9 months since Albert Manifold came in, fired the chief executive of BP, Murray Auchincloss, and replaced him with the first female CEO in BP's history, Meg O'Neill, that he wants to deliver change rapidly. Now, that has clearly come at a cost to the niceties of that we often hear about in British boardrooms. And in fact, in the statement that Albert Manifold has issued today, he addresses that. He talks about the fact that when he saw unnecessary or excessive spending inside BP, he called it out. He had no interest, he says, in having a dedicated chauffeur-driven limousine at my beck and call on the occasions I was in London. I had no interest in taking private aviation, nor in availing myself of corporate tickets for sporting events. What's interesting about this is that it sets the stage, I think, for quite a messy legal battle between Mr Manifold and the company at a time when it really can't afford it. Now, in his longer statement, Wilf, what Albert Manifold has said is that he does not accept lies which are being told about me, nor that anyone should be allowed to hide behind anonymity when commenting on my time at BP. Is it possible that in my determination to drive change on costs, performance, the balance sheet and shareholder communications, I pushed hard and challenged people directly? Yes, it is. But there is a considerable distance between driving an organisation with urgency and the characterisation of my conduct that is now being put about. And I think, for context, the last couple of days have seen a lot of anonymous sources, including some company insiders who have spoken to me, talking about Mr Manifold's behaviour during his short stint at the company, allegations that he was belittling executives, both junior and senior, that he was aggressive, that he had a volcanic temper, that he was trying to micromanage the chief executive that he himself had recruited. And as I say, this could be dismissed as just another kind of boardroom ruction that we see from time to time in at the top level of British businesses. But this is a company which matters. It is vulnerable at the moment. Yes, its profits have been buoyed by the soaring oil prices in the wake of the Iran war. But this is a company whose future matters to the country, and the prolonging of the psychodrama that we've seen at BP so many times in recent years is certainly not in the company's interests, nor in its shareholders, and arguably not in Britain's either.
Mark Kleiman there with all the details there on the ousted BP chairman's pushback.
Now, look, this is a bigger issue than many perhaps realise, but more people are arrested for driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol.
There are both more arrests and more repeat offenders, with drug drivers almost 5 times as likely to get behind the wheel again while under the influence.
Greg Mylan's been taking a look at why the problem is so bad.
We've been confronting Britain's drug drivers.
You've got kids in the car. Come on, Millet, stay away from me, lad.
Yeah, it's bang to rights. I've been smoking. I smoke fairly regular, to be truthful.
The impact of drug driving can be dramatic, and it's getting worse.
So at this moment in time, you're under arrest, all right, for a positive drug wipe. I'd say it's bigger than drink driving nowadays.
Look at what this car, driven by someone on cocaine, unleashed. We've spoken to that driver.
Look at me, it could have been so much worse. It could have been like 20 fatalities.
I've reported on the fatal consequences of drug driving. But for all the police action, it's still taking months to get them off the roads.
There is a frustration because they're probably committing that offence over and over, realistically.
Other countries do get drug drivers off the road right away. So who are they? Who are Britain's drug drivers?
You can see the full report, well worth doing so. Scan the QR code on the screen now.
We just want to bring you some pictures from the French Open this week, which I think you could say were not your typical pictures that we get from tennis championships. So this is Naomi Osaka, one of the most successful female tennis players. But this is the outfit she wore when walking out onto the court. The ceremonial black skirt, sleeveless beaded bodice. She took off most of it, obviously, to play the game. But apparently it was a reflection of the Eiffel Tower.
And the 4-time Grand Slam champion has faced some criticism about this from her opponent, Laura Siegemund, for the fact that it took a long time to then start the game because of this.
Yeah, so it's interesting that her opponent, who lost, by the way, wasn't criticising the dress. She was like, she can wear what she wants, but she was saying she actually took quite a long time to have to get changed out of the long bit of the skirt, and made the point that normally they like, you know, every second counts on a tennis court. You're only allowed a certain amount of time for a water break or whatever. And her criticism was that the kind of bigger players have different rules to the rest of everyone else.
Albeit, I mean, look, I haven't seen it, so I don't know exactly the details, but presumably it's before this. It's not like she puts this back on in between. So
No.
before the start, it's a bit of a rich criticism, isn't it? I mean, she doesn't put it back on in between, does she?
No, she doesn't.
No.
I think it's and also I kind of love the fact that she's expressing herself walking out. But I guess if you were, I don't know, spending too long before starting the match because you were drinking a water bottle and you get penalised for that, the same rules should apply.
Yeah. Again, it's before the start, though. I mean, everyone can delay this. It doesn't change the outcome of the game, does it, if you start 5 minutes later? But anyway.
Yeah, you wouldn't get it at Wimbledon.
The criticism also would have been more punchy if she'd won.
Yeah, fair.
But anyway, there we go. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk to the Conservatives, the Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, in response to Alan Milburn's, of course, high-profile findings this morning.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist...
My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more.
Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
Well, we're talking this morning about what I think is fair to say is a crisis for a generation. The number of young people who are not in education, who are not in work, who are not in any training, and this fear that it is going to get worse because of pressures on the jobs market. A lot of this is because people are trying to get jobs, they can't get on the ladder, and it also has a big impact, of course, on the benefits bill as well, on the welfare bill. With that in mind, we can talk now to Helen Whately, the Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, who joins us now. Great to have you with us. It's quite a thoughtful report by Alan Milburn. I don't know what your view is on it.
Well, it's a very serious situation. On the one hand, the numbers of almost 1 million young people not in education, employment and training, and that number set to go up. So this is a really serious situation. And I talk to young people up and down the country, of course, and from those conversations, it's so hard as a young person to get a job at the moment. Young people applying for hundreds of jobs, getting hundreds of rejections, or in fact, silence. So it's a really tough time out there for young people. The report, I mean, it's a good thing to have this report. It brings together lots of data, lots of information about the problem, really shining a light on how serious the situation is. I'd say there's a problem, though, which is the report contains no solutions, no actual proposals.
But that's coming next, though, isn't it, I think?
Yes, Alan Milburn has said that's coming, so yes. However, we have a government that's already been there for almost 2 years, and rather than doing anything about this, actually the problem has only got worse under them. And then further down the track, they're saying that, no, we'll get this report with some proposals and then will the government actually implement it or not? Who knows? So the problem is, this is happening here and now. We're getting thousands of young people stuck on benefits rather than in work, and a government that has only made the situation worse. I think that's unfair on a whole generation of young people.
Look, I absolutely agree with you about the seriousness of the situation facing young people. Right, I think it's completely right to say that. At the same time, though, some of these issues are pretty big, quite big things to grapple with. How is AI going to impact the jobs market, for example? What kind of education is best preparing our children for the future world of work? How is technology impacting mental health when it comes to claims? We shouldn't just rush to sticking plaster solutions. Is it not right to actually think about these things a little bit more seriously?
So these are serious questions, and I don't suggest for a moment there are easy answers. I mean, I see the work when you're in opposition is to do the hard work on what are the problems now and what are the problems that you can foresee coming down the track, so that when you get elected into government, you've got a plan. Now, one of my criticisms of Keir Starmer is that he turned up in government without a plan. You could foresee these problems coming up already, back when they were in opposition, but they turned up, to the extent they had a plan, it was actually things that made the situation worse, like their jobs tax, like the Employment Rights Bill, that has made it harder for young people to get jobs. So yes, the problem is complex. You need to look at education, look at welfare reform. Though actually, first and foremost, what young people most want is jobs, and the government should be backing businesses here and now to provide jobs.
Can we talk about welfare in particular? Because I think this is a really interesting issue. So first up, you are talking about removing what you're calling low-level mental health claims off the sickness benefits bill. So you're not going to get benefits for certain issues. What kind of thing are you talking about?
So yes, we are saying that we would stop giving people benefits for the lower level. This is sickness benefits for the lower level mental health conditions. So you've got things like anxiety, mild depression, or on the spectrum of neurodiversity, ADHD. These are really...
Genuinely, how do you define whether anxiety is a low-level mental health condition?
Well, there are clinical definitions between serious mental illness and lower-level mental health
So what is the
problems.
definition for anxiety, then, that would mean you wouldn't have it anymore?
So there's different clinical classification. You should probably get a psychiatrist in to talk about that,
I'm sorry.
different.
This is not a psychiatrist. You were saying you want to take anxiety claimants, take the money away, benefits away if you have anxiety. You need to be able to tell me what that definition is.
So there is, and so if you look at the reasons for why people are getting personal,
just say you don't know.
I am. No, I'm not saying that.
Okay, so
if you look at the reasons why people are receiving PIP, anxiety is one of the reasons. It is a specific definition.
So any anxiety claimant you wouldn't get benefits for. Is that the rule?
So we're saying that anxiety would not be a reason to get the personal independence payment. And go into this at one more level. PIP was...
Just to go back to the initial question, anxiety, you said, was a low-level condition. But I guess I'm putting it to you that some forms of anxiety may not be a low-level condition, right?
So the reason that the design of PIP, the Personal Independence Payment System, which was decades ago, was intended to support people with the extra costs of the health condition that they're living with. And clearly there are health conditions that have extra costs. For instance, people might have extra energy costs if they've got equipment that they need to cope with their health condition, extra costs if they're struggling to get around, mobility costs, for instance. This doesn't apply in the same way for lower-level mental health conditions. So this is one part of the system that needs to be reformed. The other thing that's significant, and clinicians will say, don't just take my word for this, and we worked with the Centre for Social Justice on this policy last year, is that people with those kind of lower-level mental health conditions and neurodiversity are usually better off in work. The worst thing you can do is be sat at home rather than going out to work. So we're saying, instead of giving people handouts and cash, people should be supported to go into work and be supported to cope with their mental health struggles. That is a much better answer to this problem.
Just finally, we spoke to Alan Milburn earlier, who was saying that the anxiety and the mental health issues that this younger generation feel is a real thing. And he was saying part of it is because of the use of technology and scrolling on phones and social media, and it was pretty clear to me that he thought there should be a ban in the future. Do you accept that actually there is a real issue, a genuine issue, they're not making it up, Alan Milburn would say, with young people when it comes to mental health?
I think there are genuine challenges for young people with their mental health. And one factor in this is, of course, the pandemic, where you had a generation that stayed at home and were homeschooling as opposed to socialising, being out and about with their classmates or out in person in university. Also, they missed out on opportunities to get work experience or to get part-time work. So they've had much less exposure to the world of work. So, yes, this generation does really need to be supported to get out and work. They really need the jobs to be there for them, not be signposted onto benefits.
OK, thank you very much. Always good to have you on the programme, Helen. Wait, you there for the Conservatives.
We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will be talking to the BAFTA-winning actress, Dame Kristen Scott Thomas, about her latest movie, her direct...
Exactly.
Welcome back. BAFTA-winning actress Dame Kristen Scott Thomas has stepped behind the camera for the first time, making her directorial debut in the semi-biographical film My Mother's Wedding. Let's take a look.
What has happened to our mother? Why on earth would she choose him?
There you go again. Tell me, Victoria Frost, of your numerous successful marriages.
I have never pretended to be anything but myself.
That's a famous actress. This is my wedding. Pull yourselves together. I brought you up to be women, not just daughters. Your fathers gave their lives for their country, but they were not the perfect men you imagine.
That was just a small taste of it, and I'm thrilled to say that Dame Kristen joins me now. A very good morning, and welcome to Sky News.
Thank you very much.
I saw the film last night at the great event you held, and I adored it. It was uproariously funny, great fun throughout, but also deeply moving. I hadn't realised there was that level of depth behind it, and I would say sort of profound about grief and processing grief. Set up for us the context, because it's not your life story, but there is a lot that you draw from your own life story.
Absolutely. So this is the story of three women who returned to their family home, their childhood home, for their mother's third wedding. Now, they're all romantically disastrous and searching for the great love, etc. And she is deliriously happy, and their noses are slightly out of joint. And then we discover why, and that's where the autobiographical element comes in, because one of the daughters, the one played by Scarlett Johansson, the eldest daughter, is haunted by memories of her father and her stepfather, her mother's first two husbands, who were both killed on duty when they were in the Navy. And that is my story. So I lend my story to sort of give a seed to the rest of what happens. Because,
I was not aware of this until preparing for this in the last few weeks, but you lost your father at 5.
I lost
your
my father at
11.
5, and my mother married another pilot, and he was sadly killed when I was 11.
And both Royal Navy pilots.
Yes.
And
on exercise. No, it wasn't a war or anything. It was just accidents.
Still, of course, in service. And one of the things I thought was so amazing about the film and processing that, the character you now play, the matriarch of the family, as opposed to one of the children that your life is closer to, is very clear about the challenges of getting through grief, but also not being imprisoned by it.
Not being imprisoned by it, not letting it become who you are. It's part of who you are, it's part of your makeup. But I think it's important to be able to sort of wade through that and look at it properly and not just hide it away in a cupboard, and especially not hide it the way Catherine, Scarlett Johansson's character, the way Catherine keeps it to herself and sort of polishes it and looks over it and keeps it like some sort of treasure, her memories that she has with her father, which are, of course, very, very precious. But there's no need to kind of obsess about them and build your life around them.
And you sprinkle in, as I said at the top, just great humour and comedy throughout it. And what amazing cast you pulled together to play this and embody a very British sort of families coming together, fighting a lot, but loving a lot.
There's weddings for you.
Yeah.
That's what happens. No, I was very, very fortunate to have Scarlett Johansson jump on board, and literally, and then everything sort of fell into place. So, of course, Scarlett, I've played Scarlett's mother 3 times now, and she said, you know, well, we've got to do it a 3rd time. I'm coming. Anyway, so that was all very sort of lucky and happy, and I was very, very glad about that, because she's an amazing actress. And Sienna Miller, of course. But actually, to be truthful, I'd written that part for Sienna Miller because I thought she would just nail it. And she does. And then there's a wonderful actress called Emily Beecham, who's less well-known than the others, but surely should be. And she's just a beautiful, beautiful actress. And, of course, Frida Pinto.
Yeah, and they all are brilliant in it. And as you alluded to, you know, you wrote this.
Yes.
Talk about family affairs. You wrote it with your husband as well. And then directed, which last night ahead of the screening, you were talking about, which I thought was so interesting, the difference. You know, we all think of you of a queen of your industry, as you so rightly are, But you were apprehensive about the directorial aspect and having to be so much more forceful with your friends and colleagues who you're usually alongside. Instead, you're bossing them around.
My brothers and sisters would disagree with you. So much more forceful. But no, I mean, it was a huge challenge, and I think the only way to really grow as a person and as a professional is to be challenged and to try different things and to learn by your mistakes and to learn by watching other people and to learn, you know, and to have the opportunity to do that. I mean, I was incredibly lucky to be able to do that.
Are there directors you were most inspired by?
Oh, I've worked with so many, so many completely brilliant directors, others less brilliant, and the ones that you are the most excited to be on the set for are the ones that make you wake up in the morning and think, oh, I can't wait to get in there and play that part, and I wonder how I'm going to be guided through that scene today. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that really, you know, make you want to do it.
I guess the two-part question next, which is, I know, is there more writing and directing to come in your future, or focusing back on the acting? I know you're going back on the West End for the Cherry Orchard in October, so immediately you're not doing more directing, but is there more in the future?
Well, I very much hope so. I'm planning to. I've got something in the works at the moment. And yes, I'm definitely going back on stage, and that's where I kind of re-energise, where I'm nourished, where I kind of get the energy, despite it being the most exhausting thing in the world. Being on stage is something that really, really I find absolutely inspiring and gives me the strength to go back and do other things.
We here at Sky News often try and hit some other more serious topics.
Apparently.
And I wanted, you know, not many people know this, you know, a damehood here and a Légion d'honneur in France, where you've spent a lot of years, decades living in Paris. You're an enormous star of French stage and screen as much as you are here. And I just wondered, with the last week or so, with Labour leadership battles happening, the debate over Europe rearing its head again, my question on this for you was almost whether you think France and the EU will have us back, and where the tensions are today, or are you optimistic?
Well, how can I put this? I was a Remainer, and then I was termed a Ramona, and now I'm just very cross. So that's all I can really say. I think none of us have come out well from this. Europe has suffered, we've suffered. I think, you know, I don't know what's going to happen.
Still much more that binds us together. You adore France as much as...
Well, of course I do. I made it my home for 40-something years. I think it's really, really important to me. France is... I was recently there. It's part of me. It's half of me. It's like sort of, it's like a parent.
Well, if we end up going back towards it, whoever's in government needs to sign you up as someone to help us negotiate reasonable terms and a warm and friendly environment. My final question for you, Kristen, and the scene at the end, I don't want to sort of spoil it for people, but it's shot on the Prince of Wales, the aircraft, which I don't know how you got access to that.
Well, we were incredibly... I have a very, very good producer called Finola Dwyer, who just campaigned, and then I had a lot of help from people that I kind of managed to make telephone calls to because of my naval connections. So it was with enormous gratitude that we were able to get on there and shoot there for 3 days with these amazing people who were just so... It was just so moving to see these young faces and many more very senior faces. I was very privileged to have so many extraordinary, important people on deck with us. But to see these young, optimistic, sort of almost innocent faces of these young people who are going into the armed forces, I have nothing but admiration for them. I mean, they are extraordinary.
Well, you jumped to where I was going to ask, which, you know, it's this fantastic scene, beautifully shot, and that's where I was going to kind of end, but you've kind of got there already. But you must, you must, given your...
See, I'm taking over, I'm being forceful.
No, but I still have a follow-up question on it, though. Just that you must, you know, have the most enormous respect as we kind of pause, and last week again, people talking about the prospect of war not being that far off with Russia, for those people in our armed forces, given given what
I mean,
your two fathers?
And lots and lots of other people in my family have been in the armed forces. Yeah, I mean, we owe them respect, we owe them budget, and we owe them thanks, you know, for doing what they're doing.
Yeah, we certainly do. Well, thank you to your fathers, to your other family members for their service. Thank you for a fantastic film. I really loved it. My mother's wedding is out tomorrow.
Friday.
Friday. What day is it today? It is
I don't
Thursday.
know.
Yeah, I'm right.
Is it Thursday? It's tomorrow.
It's out tomorrow, and thank you for joining us this morning. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Dame Kristen Scott Thomas. We're going to have a quick look at the weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
The heat is building again today, although we're not quite set to beat Tuesday's record high. After today, though, temperatures will slowly start to ease back, and for now, it's a warm and mostly fine start for many of us, although northern England has got a few thunderstorms in store. They will ease and clear through the morning, though, leaving most places dry with plenty of sunshine. Some misty low cloud and drizzle will affect parts of Ireland and southwest Britain, especially around Irish Sea coasts. Northern and eastern parts, though, are keeping warmer than yesterday.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, look, we've been talking about the number of young people not in education, employment or training all morning, and we've just got the new statistics for that crossing our desks now, and it's gone up, sadly. It's now at a post-pandemic high of 1.01 million, and that is in the 3 months from January to March, so another concerning rise.
Lucy's here to break down significance of these numbers for us.
Yeah, I mean, well, what have we been saying all morning? That this report by Alan Milburn is saying that the number is going to rise and it's going to keep rising unless we do something about it. So this morning, there's just further confirmation of that. More than 1 million. So just to put it in context, that's up by 55,000 since December at the end of last year. So quite a chunky amount. And interestingly, just coming through now, the first time it ever surpassed 1 million was, the last time was in 2013. So after the financial crash. So from 2008 to 2013, it was around this level. So, I mean, that kind of does put it into perspective, really, doesn't it? That this is a really, really serious situation, something the government needs to get hold of. Over 1 million now today. I think we can expect it, as Alan Milburn is saying, to just keep going up.
Lucy, great stuff. Thanks so much. We're going to take a quick break. Crystal Palace now with a European trophy in their hands. Aston Villa have one in their hands from last week. Can Arsenal make it a hat-trick of English European champions? We will ask England and Arsenal legend David Seaman next.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Nice to see you. How are you feeling?
Looking forward to getting into the parliamentary chamber.
Are you any further forward to making a decision?
No, it's an important day today.
All of the claims were in line with my parliamentary duties, so I'm making that clear to you, Conor.
He was a Scot through and through.
He was a very good politician.
Alex Salmond was controversial, he was a disruptor, but above all, he was respected.
Will you resign if you lose this week?
Again, I'm not planning to, of course, lose the vote of no confidence. I'm planning to win that vote of no confidence.
His face said it all.
My intention to stand down as party leader.
This is now a storm with deadly consequences. How are they feeling?
They're a bit scared at the minute. We've been told to evacuate.
How are you feeling?
Devastated.
Hundreds of homes were wiped out by flooding. I'm Conor Gillis, Sky's Scotland correspondent.
It was probably the darkest time in my life.
Scott is 5 years sober after a cocaine addiction left him close to death.
Scotland has a shameful record. Worse than England, the worst in Europe. Why not just say you failed? Because then you might get more respect from families who've lost loved ones.
This is where one of the UK's most prolific rapists thought he'd got away with murder.
Sky News can reveal that former sex workers had told police he was sexually violent.
My Emma.
Free wherever you get your news.
It's over, isn't it?
The Americans say he is Rossi, a fraudster.
This has been one of the most bizarre cases ever heard in a courtroom in this country.
A dangerous murderer.
Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive Andrew Innes after this?
She said she can forgive him, but as long as he's behind bars.
By doing the right thing, it's destroyed your life.
They terrorised me. They intimidated me.
Sky News. The full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking,
Thank you so much.
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Well, it's been a great night for Crystal Palace fans. The club won its first European trophy in the Conference League final, and now attention turns to another team's shot at European glory in the Champions League final on Saturday.
It does indeed. Arsenal, of course, up against PSG on Saturday. To talk about that and much more, the former England and Arsenal goalkeeping legend David Seaman joins us. David, very good morning.
Morning.
Great to have you with us. Let's kick off with Palace. This
Yes.
is a fantastic moment for them.
It was. I watched it last night, and they looked in control as well. You know, when you look at the chances they created, it could have been a lot more. But they've put the pressure right on Arsenal now. Villa and Palace winning. Now we've got to go and do our bit.
We absolutely do. I want to come to that in a second, but just first reflect on the feeling of Arsenal being major trophy winners again after it's been such a long wait. It
has. It's been a long time. You know, the biggest thing that's come through to me is that every Arsenal fan now has seen Arsenal win the Premier League. You know, and there's been people coming up to me that have been like 20, 21, 22. They'd never seen us win it. You know, and these were, you know, just a couple of generations of fans there that have never seen it, but now it's happened.
We had a great interview with someone just outside the stadium who said that he hadn't even been fertilised when I was the last one. It's like, summed it up, right?
Exactly, you know, and it's such a relief, you know, and it's a relief now, and even for the players, I think they'll use that now to go into this Champions League final.
So let's talk about what's going through their head now, because you've obviously been involved with a couple of massive double-winning seasons. What is the mentality between the two? You know, you celebrate this massive moment, probably have a couple of nights out, or you know, take your focus off the professional, and now you've got to get back into that mindset.
Yeah, it won't take long. You know, we were fortunate that we could rest people for the Palace game. You know, because obviously we'd won it before then, so that was a bonus. But now they're in training. I know that they're in today, and you know, so they'll be totally focused on the game on Saturday.
And just preview that for us. I mean, A, have we got a good chance? Have Arsenal got a good chance? And B, if they get over the line with this, is it the biggest achievement for a generation for Arsenal because it's the Champions League alongside the Premier League?
I'd say it's the best season ever because, you know, when you look at the Invincibles, you know, that was a fantastic season, but it was only one trophy. You know, to win the Premier League and the Champions League, the club have never won the Champions League, so there'll be history created. Yeah, I would say it's the best season ever. If they do it.
Yeah, if. How confident are you? Because Wilfred's a glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah. No, I'm all right with that. Yeah, I'm glass half full. That's only 50-50 though, isn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. We know PSG are a good team. You know, they've got some great players. But we do know that they've let goals in as well. So play our game. Don't play the occasion. Be defensively strong. Set piece again.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll see.
Oh God, it doesn't matter how you do it.
I know. Whether it's 1-0 or 10-9, I don't care. It's about the result, not the performance.
And you're going out there to watch?
Yeah, I'm going to watch it. Yeah, me and Frankie are going out there. Yeah, so that'll be fun.
And then flying back from Budapest quickly on Sunday because Soccer Aid's on Sunday.
Yeah, straight to Soccer Aid. Yeah, I'm not playing anymore, but yeah, it's great. I'm going to Soccer Aid straight after this as well. You know, so we start training, and it's great. You know, to see the amount of money that's been raised, like over £121 million.
It's amazing.
You know, for Soccer Aid and UNICEF, and it's been winning journey. I was involved right from the beginning, so it's been a long time.
It's been fantastic soccer, and that is, of course, on Sunday for people to watch as well. Then attention will turn to the World Cup. And my question to kick this off for you is the pressure different as an England player going into these national tournaments? And how do you deal with it?
Yeah, the pressure is massively different because there's more scrutiny. There's definitely more pressure because you play for your country now. Then there's like playing in friendlies for your country, which is quite pressurised, but then there's playing in World Cup qualifiers and then playing in a World Cup, and that's what we're doing. But we're now going into these tournaments now as not favourites, but a good chance of winning it.
Oh, stop! Not favourites. Can't say.
I know.
Honestly, I'm too.
Yeah, there's a few other good teams.
But talk us through whether we put too much pressure on. They only come around every 4 years, so there's a sort of natural pressure that builds in that regard. But when you went into the 4 major tournaments, the 2 World Cups that you played in, do you think that the odds were stacked against us as a country because of the sort of expectation? I mean, we talk about taking 22 years for Arsenal. I mean, it's been a long time for England.
It's been a long, long time. But, there's a lot of expectation. But now that expectation is born through the fact that we've got to finals, we've got to semi-finals. We've been really close. We were close as well, but we've been even closer now. So at some stage we are going to do it, and I want to be around for that party, mate. So I'll give you a call, yeah?
Definitely. I'm so fascinated as someone who's been there, right, who has represented England at these World Cups, for any kind of insight into what it's like in those camps. Because obviously we've heard from, when Gareth Southgate was there, some of the things he tried to do, making people want to play from England, breaking down cliques, getting different teammates to talk to each other. What was it like for you when you were there?
I think it was like a little bit of the start of the cliques, because there was a lot of Arsenal players, there was a lot of Man United players, and then it was the others. But I was always aware and trying to make sure that I mixed with everybody, and so that everybody else did. But what Gareth did was brilliant, and everybody thinks that Thomas is going to step in and move it on another level. But the level that Gareth set is really high, and we'll see what he does this summer. But he's already caused a few shocks with the squad already, hasn't he?
What do you make? I have to say, I was pretty surprised, I think it's fair to say, with some of the people who were left out. What do you think?
I totally agree. The experience that he's left out is alarming, I'd say. When you look at some of the players that he's left, that are going to be left at home. But I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
Who do you mean in particular? Who were you alarmed?
Like Maguire, Palmer and Foden, Bowen. There's a lot. Trent. Trent was a big one for me, because of, the standard that he's playing at Real Madrid. To actually just leave him out, because he's got a lot of other... He's not just a full-back, he could be a right-sided player or whatever, he's a good set pieces.
Do you think he's taking into account, things like how people are in the dressing room, if you like?
Maybe.
Maybe attitude, stuff like that?
Yeah, he could be, but what's going on in the dressing room doesn't really bother me. It's what goes on the pitch. That's where it's got to matter. That's where it counts.
I mean, there's obviously, if we think about the sort of first 11, not just the squad, so much focus on Harry Kane, Saka, Bellingham, a lot of the stars. What about Jordan Pickford? Is he good enough to bring it home for us? How highly do you rate him?
He's shown that he's good enough. His performances for England have been brilliant. And for me, he doesn't get the credit he deserves. I don't know whether that's to do with his style, because sometimes even I get nervous watching him. I'm sure he's in total control, but sometimes I'm not. But he does really well for it, and he's been doing it for Everton for the last few seasons as well. Yeah. So he's by far England's number one.
Finally, we're less than a minute left. What changed this season for Arsenal that England need as well?
Belief, I think. The fact that we've been there, came second 3 years in a row. And then just to try and get that next level, just the confidence levels, I think, and Mikel is so meticulous about everything. I see him in the training ground and he does some good things.
David, it's been a pleasure, as always, to catch up and to see you. And, safe travels to Budapest and bring it back for us.
I hope so.
England and Arsenal legend David Seaman with us there. Real pleasure to catch up with him.
Still feeling confident?
Yeah.
Even more so, I guess.
Got to go and do it. Bring it home, lads.